last year on your motorbike. You fell off your bike.
Yeah.
You almost lost your leg.
Yeah.
How are you now?
I'm good.
After the accident, you said, I'm 56 years old. Perhaps it's time I stop being an idiot and realize that there are people out there who love me. Is this a different Mathieu Kassovitz?
No, actually,
a tamer version?
It was like that for 10 minutes. Then I realized that I can just have fun. No, the problem is that I have a big problem. And that's why I make these movies, is that I cannot be happy because I have too much empathy for people that are in pain. And it ruins my life. So when something bad happens to me and I see that people are gathering around me, and I felt good. But that doesn't stop my inner revolt against the injustice that I see.
It's a pretty profound thing to say. You struggle to be happy because you're so... I think you, in the recent past, you took in a bunch of homeless people into your home. Yeah. Maybe up to 3 you had in the house all at one time.
Yeah, and the
which
dog.
is a pretty extraordinary... Are you still doing that?
No, I can't do that anymore. It took... I did that for 10 years, and it took a toll. Because you cannot help people halfway. You know, if you take somebody out of the street, you cannot put it back in the street. You have to find solutions. And sometimes you have to find solutions against people that are so disconnected that you're fighting for them more than fighting for themselves. So it's the only way you can help people is by being rich yourself or sacrificing yourself for the others, which is the most beautiful thing. But if you can bring wealth to others by sharing your own, that's the way to do it, I think.
Or what about making movies? Is that in any way, in your mind, a way to do it?
I don't think it's relevant anymore. I thought it was. I don't think it's relevant anymore. Because TikTok can teach you anything about any subject in 1 minute. So
movies as an agent of social change?
You don't need it anymore.
You've moved on from that?
Yeah.
Really?
I haven't moved on from that because my next movie is a World War II movies with animals. And we're explaining the war through the eyes of animals. So I'm still into it. But this movie is so universal about politics and about what we are as humans, that I think it will be my last one. I don't think it's relevant to make political movies anymore.
This could be your last movie?
Yeah, I hope so, yeah, I would love to.
That's quite an ending.
I'm sorry, guys.
Thank you very much for joining me on
Thank you very much
Hot
for
Talk.
having me.
That was Hard Talk. I'm Saroja Coelho. You're listening to CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello there, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We are live downtown on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. And Mr. Corey Funk is in studio right now, as you can see on YouTube. Good morning, Corey.
Morning.
Yay! So it's usually when I say good morning to the team anyway. Corey directs the show. Thank you. Corey also covers on air the commute. Abby Adiyemi is also here. Good morning, Abby. Abby is our technical producer on the program and covers weather on the show. And good morning to those in behind our YouTube controls this morning. That is Brad Lilly. Good morning, Brad. And Dylan Longhurst this morning also here with us. Good morning, Dylan. Thank you for joining us. We're on air till 8:37 this morning with the morning show on CBC. And it is Friday. And we'll update your weather in a moment. Right now, let's get straight into news headlines. Heather Wells joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, despite a projected enrollment drop, Brandon University has delivered a balanced budget. Scott Lamont, the university's Vice President of Administration and Finance, says the university's bottom line is taking a hit because there will be fewer international students on campus. International student enrollment at BU is expected to fall by about 20%. We're going to hear more about that as well. This month's grad season has some extra meaning for a single mother of 5. Christy Wilson says graduating from high school is nothing short of a miracle. We're going to hear her story and what her next journey will be coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
15 degrees in Winnipeg right now. Today's high 26 in the sunshine. With Humidex, it's going to feel like 29. So it's going to be really hot today in Winnipeg. This morning on the program, it is the time of the month where we have our monthly interview with the Premier. So yesterday we had the Mayor on actually for his conversation, and today Premier Wab Kinew is going to join us. So that is at 7:45. If you were listening yesterday, the Mayor actually made a call to cover more funding, looking to the province to help the cash-strapped city, especially when it comes to grants for some inner-city organizations. We're going to have a talk with Premier Wab Kinew about that. We're also going to ask the Premier how he is celebrating on this National Indigenous Peoples Day. Speaking of that, after 7 o'clock on the program, we are going to be hearing from a mother and daughter about how proud they are to be Indigenous and why they say for them it was not always something that they were proud of. And we're going to hear why. And that is because of some of the adversity they faced.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
Dr. Shirley Chichu is one of the most prominent voices in Indigenous film and theater history, and she has a lot to say about the term residential school survivor. She prefers residential school warrior.
We fight this every day of our lives.
She'll be here to tell you why and the healing you can find in the arts. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. It's looking like it's going to be a blockbuster campaign summer for federal politicians, and the election isn't supposed to be until sometime next year. MPs have finished House business, and as Kate McKenna explains, this season promises to be a tale of two leaders, with one riding high in the polls and the other hoping for a reboot.
Bonjour, enchanté.
Pierre Poilievre is on the offensive. Touring Quebec ridings, he's hoping his party will pick up. This week, he unveiled a new RV with a giant image of his family on the side. It looks like a campaign bus, even with no election in sight. After touring a manufacturing plant in Victoriaville, he said his goal is to hear from Quebecers.
Les politiciens, le gouvernement fédéral ignorent.
Saying politicians and the federal government don't care about Quebecers.
Thank you for welcoming to your beautiful riding of Central Nova.
In comparison, the Prime Minister was in Nova Scotia, touting his plan for a national school food policy.
There's always a lot more to do. We know people are facing all sorts of pressures, from housing to health supports, to concerns about what kind of jobs and futures there are for yourselves and your communities.
The Atlantic was once a Liberal stronghold. They swept the region in 2015. Now pollsters say the Liberals are in trouble across the country. David Coletto is the CEO of Abacus Data.
It's not just that they're 20 points behind the Conservatives, it's that only in our polling, less than 30% of Canadians have a positive impression of the Prime Minister, that only 27% think the country's headed in the right direction.
Trudeau will spend the summer trying to convince Canadians otherwise, while Poilievre will work to build on his momentum. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Meanwhile, a new poll suggests Canadians want MPs to do more to tackle foreign interference. The Angus Reid survey shows 2/3 say neither the PM nor Parliament are taking the issue seriously enough. The poll also says about 60% of Canadians want federal leaders to review a recent bombshell intelligence report. More than half say the same of the opposition leader. Pierre Poilievre has so far refused calls to get security clearance that would enable him to review the document. The document was tabled earlier this month. Pressures increasing on the federal government to slap a big tax on electric vehicles coming from China. Ontario's premier, the latest critic, calling for the measure. There are worries an influx of Chinese-made EVs would saturate Canada's market, putting thousands of jobs at risk. Janice McGregor is in Ottawa and joins us now with an update. Janice, there are signs of some movement.
That's right, John, and it's overdue movement in the eyes of North American car makers. They've sounded the alarm about the spike in Chinese electric vehicle imports. Over the first 4 months of 2024, for example, there have been over 13 times as many Chinese EVs coming into Canada, many of them Teslas from its gigafactory in Shanghai. Might be good for the planet to have fewer gas cars on the street, and governments, of course, have offered consumers incentives to make this switch. But if Chinese brands grow too much, that's a direct threat to manufacturing here, and Canadian taxpayers have shelled out billions to help electrify this industry. In a statement yesterday, Ontario Premier Doug Ford said China's been taking advantage of its lower labor standards and dirty energy to flood Canada's market. He called on the federal government to immediately match or exceed the tariffs that the Biden administration put in place this spring, including at least 100% tariff on Chinese EVs. Here's how Prime Minister Justin Trudeau responded to that call.
We will continue to be there to protect Canadian workers and Canadian industry, and we will look very carefully at what steps need to be taken to ensure that the Canadian auto industry and indeed Canadian consumers are well supported for years to come.
When CBC News followed up on that, Chrystia Freeland's spokesperson repeated that they're actively considering what they need to do to protect Canadian jobs, as well as Canada's free trade relationships. Because with NAFTA, Canada's sometimes accused of being an open back door into the U.S. market.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
Officials in Churchill Falls are telling people to stay out and stay safe. The central Labrador town is still under an evacuation order due to the high threat of an out-of-control wildfire in the area. Teams there are working to keep the flames away from the community. More than 700 people evacuated nearly 300 kilometers east to Happy Valley Goose Bay. No word yet on when people can return. Meanwhile, in Richmond, British Columbia, emergency crews continue their overnight battle against a fire burning an old rail bridge. Several trucks were dispatched around 8 p.m. local time to fight the flames just across the river from South Vancouver. Thick black smoke could be seen kilometers away.
Yeah, it was huge. It was lots of black smoke. You don't want to get too close to it.
I mean, the fire crews got on here right on time and everything, but they've just been doing the best they can to keep it under control.
My friend saw a plane fly through the smoke recently, like right through it. No, I've never seen anything like this in Richmond.
Rescue teams say they expect the fire to burn for some time. It's not yet known what caused it. Metro Vancouver has issued an air quality bulletin asking anyone with shortness of breath, chest discomfort, severe coughing, or dizziness to seek medical help. In his first visit to the region of Kashmir since beginning his third term, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi led the celebrations marking International Yoga Day. Yoga is often seen as one of India's most effective soft power tools, and analysts say Modi may now be capitalizing on it to signal a return to normalcy in the violence-hit region. Ishan Garg reports.
The world is looking at yoga as a powerful agent of global good.
This was Prime Minister Narendra Modi's message of hope in Indian-administered Kashmir. He says yoga brings people together, not just in India, but also abroad. Many are seeing this as Modi capitalizing on yoga to project normalcy in the region, though clashes between the army and militants have continued in the Kashmir Valley. Just a day ago, Modi promised fresh elections in the region.
Assembly election ki taiyari bhi shuru ho.
People of Kashmir will soon decide their future, he said, adding that preparations to hold fresh elections in the region are ongoing. The Modi government scrapped Kashmir's special status in 2019, stripped it of its statehood and partitioned the region three ways, effectively giving the federal government control over much of its territory. This isn't the first time Modi has utilized yoga for political ends. In the past few years, several Indian missions have organized large-scale Yoga Day celebrations across the globe, attended by millions. Analysts say they have helped India pitch itself as a cultural powerhouse and a well-intentioned partner. Ishan Garg for CBC News, New Delhi.
There are sky-high concerns this morning over the future of satellites. About 9,000 are currently circling Earth. As Nicole Martellero explains, scientists expect that number to grow, leaving many worried about what happens when the devices die.
3, 2, 1, ignition, and liftoff.
What goes up must come down. In the case of the thousands of satellites orbiting Earth, like SpaceX's Starlinks, most of them will end their lives in a fiery descent towards Earth, breaking up as they do. And with plans by SpaceX to launch roughly 40,000 starlings that only have a lifespan of 5 years. Scientists are wondering what that all means for our atmosphere. Daniel Murphy, a chemical scientist with the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, is one of them.
If you have 50,000 satellites, which is a number a lot of people use, and they're up 5 years, that's 10,000 per year re-entering. That's more than one an hour.
In a recent study, he and his team found metals like aluminum, lithium, and more trapped in our stratosphere in concerning amounts. There's the fear that it could even affect the recovery of our ozone hole. While scientists are uncertain as to what the consequences could be, they do believe it's a wake-up call and that more studies need to be conducted. Nicole Morcellaro, CBC News, Toronto.
And finally, Canadian acting legend William Shatner is going where few have gone before, deep into the debate about open-pen salmon farming in British Columbia. He's put out this video.
Repeat after me. Off! Open net pen salmon farms! Your salmon farms are up our wild salmon population! It's a state on our nation! Now you have a go!
Get sideways, you open net.
Shatner released a satirical, expletive-filled video supporting the Pacific Wild Conservation Group, saying it's time to stop being polite and hence the un-Canadian language. On Wednesday, Federal Fisheries Minister Diane Leboutillier announced a new timeline for the phase-out, extending by 5 years how long open net farms will have to transition out of the business. Well, that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Well, good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, and we are live downtown. It is Friday. It's June 21st. Thanks so much for joining us. It's going to be a hot one in Winnipeg today. Abby's in with the forecast as always in a moment to tell us all about it. This hour on the show, a Kelvin High School student is going to Davenport College on an athletic scholarship for Ultimate, a sport that wasn't officially recognized by the International Olympic Committee until August of 2015. So we're going to hear more about his athletic achievements and about the growth of the sport. In addition, speaking of sports, Canada's hopes for ending this country's Stanley Cup drought rest now with the Edmonton Oilers, who, if I may say so, are on a bit of a run. Can they keep it going? We'll find out tonight. But we're also going to talk about the idea of resilience in sports, so stay tuned for that. And AI is on a lot of people's minds right now as people grapple with how the tech might affect us. At next month's Olympics, AI will have a definite presence. And Scott Regehr is in with a special report to tell us all about that. So he's with us just before 7. Right now, 6:11, Heather Wells is here with headlines.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's chief medical examiner has told an inquest the death of a 54-year-old man in RCMP custody in the Paw could have been prevented. Dr. John Eunice says he can't ignore what he saw in the security video showing John Edoe-Capo's final moments in that holding cell. He says had someone removed an inmate's leg from Edoe-Capo's neck, things might have ended differently. Today is National Indigenous Peoples Day, an annual day to celebrate the history, heritage, diversity, and resilience of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Events marking this day are being held right across Manitoba and at the Forks as well. We'll hear what's going on there coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's go to Abby now for details on, as I've described it, Abby, a hot day.
Yeah, it's going to be a hot day. It's going to be humid across the southern part of the province. We're going to be seeing highs that would feel close to 27 today. But right now in Winnipeg, it is 15. We're seeing some clear skies outside. Beautiful day ahead. It's going to be like a sunny start for us. Then we'll see a mix of sun and clouds in the afternoon. I saw some fog patches on my way in this morning, and they're going to be clearing up also if you're seeing them in your part of the wood, your neck of the woods. A high for today is 26, but like I said, for Winnipeg, it's going to be feeling more humid, like 29 today, though you're going to see some light breeze try to help with that. Tonight, partly cloudy, and then it's going to cool down to 14. Tomorrow, Saturday, mix of sun and clouds, then cloudy in the afternoon, a high chance chance of showers late in the day. But right now, Winnipeg, 15 to start. We're going to get some sunny conditions, then a mix of sun and clouds, and we're going to touch 26.
All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Corey Funk, good morning to you.
Good morning.
How was your commute in?
That was lovely. Biked in, looked, everything was pretty clear on the bike ride in. So far, things seem fairly clear, minus, the bajillion construction projects happening around the city. So if there's one that you would like to complain about, or if you're out there, if you're walking, bike, and driving, you see something else going on, give me a call on the CBC community line. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, Ultimate is having a moment. A Winnipeg teen is off to college in the U.S. on a scholarship after letting it fly on the Ultimate field here. Cale Peterson is a Kelvin High School student and is the one that is going to a national championship. He already has one under his belt. He plays for Canada's U20 under 20 team. He's going to be heading to Davenport College in New Haven, Connecticut in the fall. Now, Ultimate, in case you're not aware of what it is or you've never played, it is a team sport. The players pass a disc or a frisbee trying to catch it in the opposite team's end zone to score. It's a little bit like football with a frisbee. The sport's largely self-officiated, though, even at the highest levels of competition. CBC's Gavin Axelrod spoke with Cale about what it's like to land a big scholarship for a relatively small sport like Ultimate.
Yeah, well, it was really neat because I never really thought this would be possible. So it's really nice to see the sport actually growing pretty quickly and that you're able to have opportunities like this now. Yeah, it's just something I never expected. Feels kind of surreal.
What do all your friends make of the big news?
I mean, they're all pretty excited for me. I know I have 2 other teammates on my Team Canada team that are going to be playing there. That'll be nice to see them, and I'll have some people I already know.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit about your Ultimate Frisbee career. How long have you been playing for?
I mean, I have 3 older brothers who all play, so I've been playing with them just recreationally for pretty much my whole life. And then I guess I started actually playing in middle school, and then COVID, I had to take a break. But then I got back into it grade 10. I played for my high school, Kelvin, and then I did Team Manitoba for my grade 10 year, grade 11 year, and then I'm playing with Team Manitoba again right now. And then I'm playing on the Team Canada team.
And what's it like knowing that you're going to go to university to play Ultimate? Like, I know you said you never thought it'd be possible, but what does it feel like now that it's, I guess, coming to fruition?
It's a really cool experience. It's nice to see that the sport's treated as an actual sport because it hasn't always felt like that. Some people think of it more as a hobby. So it's cool. We get all the same equipment and all the same facilities as the other university sports do. So we get our own trainers and everything.
What kind of scholarship is it? Is it like a full scholarship or partial?
It'll be a partial scholarship, and then I get the athletic scholarship, and then I get paired with an academic scholarship too.
And so does it cover all your costs for school?
I still have to pay some, but it's a pretty generous scholarship.
What would you say to, I guess, kids that are younger than you that maybe have aspirations about one day doing the same thing that you're doing right now?
I think it's super fun. If they love the sport, I think they should stick with it because there definitely is places you can play in the future, and it doesn't have to end when you turn 18 like some other sports do. You can really play it for as long as you want. So I'd say, yeah, if it's something you love, then just keep doing it.
And I know you talked about you play with your older brothers. What do they think about you getting this scholarship?
I mean, they're all super happy for me. They never got to have opportunities like this, so I think they might be a little jealous. But I don't know, they're all super happy and excited for me, and they think it's super cool too.
And for people who maybe don't know a ton about Ultimate Frisbee in Winnipeg or don't really follow the sport, maybe tell me a bit about why this is such a big deal for you to get a scholarship to go play in the States.
Pretty small sport, not too many people know about it, and it's fairly new. I don't know quite when it's created, but it's a pretty new sport. Just to see that there are now schools around the world offering money to go play Frisbee it's pretty neat to see that the sport's actually growing, something you can continue throughout your life with.
Pretty cool, right? That is Cale Peterson off to Davenport College on a scholarship, an athletic scholarship for Ultimate Frisbee. And Cale is a Kelvin High School grad and was speaking in conversation there with CBC's Gavin Axelrod.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
They're doing a special call-in today for National Indigenous Peoples Day, and Egon Sinclair is going to be their guest. So stay tuned. That is between 12:30 and 1 o'clock, or I guess I should say, make sure you tune in a little bit later today. Right now, it's 6:18. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at Information Radio. This is the morning show on CBC. Partly cloudy in Winnipeg, 15, as Abby mentioned. Brandon's mostly cloudy. It's 12. And over in Thompson, or up in Thompson, I should say, mainly sunny this morning, and it is 5 degrees. Got a bit of music from Tyler Del Pino out of Winnipeg. Here they are, the tune from their latest EP. It's called Middle of Nowhere.
Leave the shore, sail away, say goodbye to yesterday, searching for adventure on your own. Wanderlust, different place, new beginnings, time and space, trying to get wherever you can go. It's like an endless sea. You wander endlessly. Stay the course, hopes alive, ups and downs all through the ride. Loving who you're loving while you roam. Everything I do leads me back to the middle of nowhere. And I really thought I knew, but I still can't find my home. Left the compass far behind, trust your instincts deep inside, map out which direction you should go. Frustration settle in, tear it down, build up again, hoping that this time you'll watch it grow. No stars above that shine to lead you through the night. Put yourself to the test, search to find true happiness. Wonder when you get there if you'll know. Everything I do leads me back to the middle of nowhere. And I really thought I knew, but I still can't find my home. You can sacrifice your life, you can sell your soul, you can lock yourself away for years. There's no telling what's to come, where the wind might blow, so it's good to make a friend with fear until you find your home. Everything I do leads me back to the middle of nowhere. And I really thought I knew, but I still can't find my home. You can sacrifice your life, you can sell your soul, you can lock yourself away for years. There's no telling what's to come, where the wind might blow, so it's good to make a friend with fear until you find your home. Leave the shore, sail away, say goodbye to yesterday, searching for adventure on your own.
Well, from the Middle Province, that is Middle of Nowhere from Tyler Del Pino, a Winnipeg pop artist. That tune's from their latest EP. By the way, it is also called that EP, The Middle of Nowhere. It is 6:22 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. or on the app or YouTube. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Next on the show, are you watching hockey tonight? It's hard not to get sucked into the excitement, right? It's a Friday night. Edmonton Oilers coming back home. They're coming off 2 wins, and not just wins. They handed it to Florida. But will it continue to happen? Big question. So the Oilers and their fans gearing up for what they hope will be another win tonight on home ice. They're facing off against, as mentioned, the Florida Panthers. This is Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final, and it has been decades since we had a Canadian team go this deep or win a cup, which is still a possibility. Now, they were trailing the Panthers, in case you haven't been following this series, in the first 3 games, and then they came roaring back in Games 4 and 5. A lot of it because of Connor McDavid's play. Now, among many things the Oilers have demonstrated in this series, it is resilience. So we want to talk about that this morning. Resilience. Natasha Sharma is a therapist, founder of NKS Therapy, and professor at Humber College. Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you watching this series yourself?
I am not.
It's hard not to be into the excitement, eh?
It is exciting, and it's pretty amazing. I mean, to have a Canadian team in the final, I will say that.
Absolutely. So the Oilers have been working with sports psychologist and mental skills coach George Mumford. So they've been doing the work. But when you think about the concept of resilience, whether it's on or off the ice, what's at the heart of it?
So it's the idea that when circumstances get really bad, it offers an opportunity for learning, right, and growth. So it doesn't feel good, right? Because being in a bad place and or losing or adverse experiences don't feel good, but they do offer us opportunities to reevaluate and grow, although that growth can be very painful. In this case, I think it's like, well, actually, if I could encapsulate it in one sentence, it's like being handed lemons, and making lemonade.
Is there a difference when we're talking about team resilience or group resilience, like what we might be watching with the Oilers, and individual resilience, just as people are thinking about themselves this morning, maybe?
Yeah, I think so. I think with a team, you can really feed off of your team, which is nice. So like one person or 2 persons' resilience can really make an effect on the team. And then they can kind of, almost piggyback off of or just absorb your teammates' feelings of positivity and hope. It's that feeling of hope, right? For an individual, though, so in some ways, I think it's even harder for the team, because you have to get everybody into that mindset. And I think that's why, they have coaches and psychologists to help with that. But really it comes down to everybody adopting a certain mindset.
It's interesting. I was mentioning Connor McDavid in the context of the hockey game tonight, and he's really been, a lot of the sports analysts have been talking about how he almost just said, it was almost like something clicked in his head and he said, that's it, I'm going to do this. And he just started scoring, especially 2 games ago. If to extrapolate from what you're saying, the whole team can kind of feel someone else's resilience and move through. But if you're on your own, obviously it's harder to find sometimes. How do you maintain resilience? How do you keep it?
So I think it's important to cultivate a positive mindset. That idea that self-belief, self-care, gratitude, and being grateful and appreciative for what you have. And just being very optimistic, coping through tough emotions, they will pass. And just really kind of having a mindset of positivity, I think, is really at the heart of it.
Are some people naturally resilient, or can you build it?
The irony of it is that the worse the circumstances are, the more opportunity is there for resilience. So I think the younger we are, in some way, well, actually, the younger we are, we're more resilient because we can bounce back easier, because we're not weighed down. At the same time, when we're older, we have more practice. I would say, interestingly, the younger we are, the more resilient we are, even though we may not have experienced as much that's adverse. It's just easier to bounce back because you have more. It's just easier to garner hope when you're younger. So that's one thing to keep in mind.
Do you think that also could be because when you're younger, you're more fearless? So maybe you're not, you're just sort of pushing through and going for it?
Yeah, I think so. And there's just more opportunity for change. There's less resistance to change when we're younger. We don't like it ever, but I think when we're younger, we're more able to adapt to it. It's harder to adapt to change when we're older.
Natasha, thank you for this morning.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
That's Natasha Sharma, therapist, founder of NKS Therapy, and a professor at Humber College. Sort of spinning into a creative take on the hockey game tonight, looking at the concept of resilience and in our individual lives for ourselves, and then also extending that into thinking about the Oilers, who've been very resilient in this series. Now, when it comes to actually what's going to happen on the ice tonight, we'll have that analysis coming up the next hour on Morning Sports right here on CBC. That's at 7:25. And of course, this is Oilers, Panthers, Stanley Cup finals, and they are back at home in Canada.
Jarrett Martineau hosts Reclaimed.
In an hour, you could hear everything from powwow music to like a soft acoustic ballad to an electronic record to like a dub track, all in the same hour from an Indigenous artist from any part of the world. Eclecticism is an overused word, obviously, but I think the sheer diversity that gets represented on the show is something that's totally unique.
Reclaimed with Jarrett Martineau. Available now on CBC Listen.
Friday is National Indigenous Peoples Day, a day to showcase the richness and diversity of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis cultural expressions and stories. Do you have a story you'd like to share? We'd love to hear it. Author and University of Manitoba Indigenous Knowledge Professor Niigaan Sinclair will be our special guest. Call our listener line now and leave us a message sharing your story at 204-788-3797.
Love that they're doing that today on Radio Noon. By the way, you can call early as well. If you call our listener line in the morning show, we will air some of your calls this morning on this National Indigenous Peoples Day. So our line is 788-3205. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC. How's your week going? Are you a little bit like I am in shock that we're already nearing the end of December? Beautiful time of year, though, to be out and about and watching all the grads out there. And yesterday, just a lovely day. I was at a grad myself in my personal life, and it was just lovely to see the hats flying into the blue sky. Today, if you have grad, it's going to be hot in those robes, I got to say, because the high is 26, with Humidex 29. We're at 15 right now. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM. And my director just told me I said December. Did I say December instead of June? Wow. Well, I need more coffee, apparently. Hopefully listeners know it's not December. Thanks, Corey. We do have business news coming up. Chrisley Ramlichan's going to join us. Today she's talking about Canada's 6 largest oil sands companies removing online content, and we're going to find out why. So stay with us. You're on 89.3. The news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells. Manitoba's chief medical examiner has told an inquest the death of a 54-year-old man in RCMP custody in the Pas could have been prevented had someone removed another person's leg that had fallen on his neck. CBC's Kristen Annabel is in the Pas.
Dr. John Eunice testified Thursday at the inquest into John Edaway-Capo's death in 2019. He told court when Edaway-Capo was placed in the RCMP's holding cell, he had a high blood alcohol level and signs of heart disease. But Eunice couldn't ignore what he saw in the security video showing Edaway-Capo's final moments. It showed another inmate's leg fall onto Edaway-Capo's neck and stay there for 40 minutes. He told court if someone had removed that leg, things might have ended differently. Court heard that no one physically checked on Edaway-Capo for 5 hours. When they did check on him, it was too late. The inquest is scheduled to wrap Friday with closing submissions from counsel. Kristen Annabel, CBC News, The Pas.
Today is National Indigenous Peoples Day, an annual day to celebrate the history, heritage, diversity, and resilience of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Events marking this special day are being held right across the province. At the Forks here in Winnipeg, the Wasay Healing Centre is hosting a celebration. The centre's Wayne Mason Jr. says this National Day instills a sense of pride in Indigenous youth.
To come together on Indigenous Day, June 21st, it's a big deal for a lot of our people, especially our young ones, and to recognize the elders for what they've gone through and to still be here strong.
The events at the Forks are scheduled to run from noon until 9 o'clock tonight. Well, this month's grad season has extra meaning for a single mother of 5. Christy Wilson says graduating from high school is nothing short of a miracle. The 35-year-old earned her grade 12 mature student diploma from Urban Circle Training Center. She is from Skowhenan First Nation. Wilson says dealing with her father's death and then losing her brother to addiction derailed her education, but she says she went back to school for them.
I did it, that I accomplished something in my life for my children, that I've overcome all the stuff that I feel that and coming back to school is a huge thing for me.
And Wilson's not finished yet. She has been accepted into the University of Manitoba's Pathway to Indigenous Nursing Education program. Well, it's looking like it's going to be a blockbuster campaign summer for federal politicians, and the election isn't supposed to be until sometime next year. MPs have finished House business, and this season is promising to be a tale of 2 leaders. You can hear more on that story coming up on World Report at 7. A high school course in Thompson has allowed a grade 9 student to learn more about her Indigenous roots. R.D. Parker Collegiate offers an elective course called Cultural Exploration. Students need to log 110 hours of exploring their culture. That could include taking part in sweat lodges, smudging, or ceremony with elders. For Kainina Keeper, it was adding her first beaded piece to an art project consisting of a moose hide jacket and beading and ribbons. Keeper says she learned how to bead from her sister, but she's always wanted to learn more about her culture.
I see people like in their dresses and everything, and I don't really know about it. I'm still learning.
The art project is called Niganan, which translates to home in Cree. Well, Canada was blanked by Argentina 2-0 at the opening game of Copa America soccer tourney in Atlanta, Georgia. Canada held off Argentina in the first half, but Argentina scored twice in the second. Canada's next game is against Peru Tuesday in Kansas City, Kansas. You can find more news updated throughout your morning. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks a lot, Heather.
You're welcome.
It is 6:34 a.m. That's Heather Wells from our news department this morning. You're on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. Abby Adeyemi, I blame you.
Why? What did I do? Like having a conversation here and I hear I blame you. I'm like, what's up?
I'm just joking. Before the news, I said December instead of June. But you've been talking to me about December.
You want me to say it?
Are we going to do it?
We're going to do it.
People are going to be
now.
mad. You're going to get calls.
I just want to put a.
You want to do it?
I want to put that hole in a lot of people's summer spot.
I set him up for this, so you can blame me for this too. But this is literally what Abby came and said to me a couple days ago.
I'm just going to say it and then continue my way there.
Do it, Ken.
It's 27 more Mondays before Christmas. In other news, it is 20.
You've been talking about December already.
I know. I did not say. Did you hear anything?
No, I heard nothing.
15 in Winnipeg at the moment. It's clear outside. Expecting a beautiful day ahead with a mix of sun and clouds. We'll be getting to a high of 26 today. Though feeling warmer because of that humidity. Yeah, it's going to be feeling like 28 if you are outside later. Though tonight, the temperature is going to dip to about 14 degrees, so it's just going to cool you off for a bit. Tomorrow brings a mix of sun and clouds, and then we see some showers or thunderstorm in the afternoon. But right now, Brandon is currently at 13 and mostly cloudy. The day will start with some sunny conditions, then followed by a mix of sun and clouds, and a chance of late afternoon showers or thunderstorm. And the highs for folks in Brandon, you will touch 24. It's also going to be warm out there, so brace for that. Moving north to Thompson, 5 degrees and mainly sunny at the moment. Enjoy the sunny weather throughout the day, I'll tell you, because your highs will touch 25 and a chance of showers later on. Further north in Churchill, it is 11 and mostly cloudy at the moment. You should expect these cloudy conditions to stay with you, with showers likely and possible thunderstorm in the afternoon periods, with the winds light and breezy. Shifting direction as the day progresses, you get to a high of 17. Down in Dauphin, 9 degrees, sunny start. Looking forward to a sunny day. Then we'll see that transition to a mix of sun and clouds developing by the noon period, and temperatures will climb to 25. Also going to be feeling warmer than that. Gimli, under sunny skies, currently 12 degrees. The Interlake region will be seeing more of this sunshine and then some clouds later in the afternoon, and we'll get to a high of 24. Steinbach sits in comfortably at 12 degrees at the moment, also clear out there. You have a sunny start for you, and then we'll see a transition to a mix of sun and clouds by the afternoon period. Highs will be around 26, but it's going to be feeling like 29 for folks in Steinbach, so brace for that. And similar condition for Morris, which is at 13 degrees at the moment. Forecast for the Pembina Valley region anticipates a sunny day, then some clouds would roll in later on in the late afternoon periods. Your highs would reach 25, but it's going to feel warmer than that, almost touching 30, but 29. But Winnipeg, we are at 15 degrees, and we are getting to a high of 25 later.
All right, thank you, Abby.
You're welcome.
Abby Adiyemi with our weather, and now Corey Funk.
The roads are surprisingly not slippery for December. I'm pretty impressed.
It's the last time I misspeak about anything. The best is, though, the note you put on to correct me. You guys are probably in there thinking, did she just say December?
Yeah.
So Corey just writes on screen, it's June, not December. Like this just in.
I was thinking, do we have to issue like a formal correction? Sorry, Steve. It is in fact June.
It is in fact
Put away your Christmas
June.
trees. It is June.
I don't think I wield that much power. The commute today, then, you said not bad.
Yeah, it's been really quiet overall so far. But if you're walking, biking, driving, or you see a construction site you want to complain about, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That's why we're here. 204-788-3093.
All right, thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
It's time for business news now. Crystal Ramlakan has been standing by via Zoom. Good morning, Crystal.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So why is a group of Canada's 6 largest oil sand companies removing its online content?
Well, this is over uncertainty over a new anti-greenwashing rule poised to become federal law. So the Pathways Alliance Group has publicly committed to reaching net zero greenhouse gas emissions from oil sands production by 2050. And it has spent millions of dollars on public relations to show it is committed to fighting climate change. But all that's left is a notice saying Pathways has removed its content due to concerns around an anti-greenwashing provision in Federal Bill C-59. So the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers is also reducing the amount of information on its digital platforms. Now, Bill C-59 passed third reading in the Senate Wednesday and will soon become law. It contains a truth in advertising amendment that would require corporations to provide evidence to support their environmental claims. Here's Andrew Leach, who is an energy and environmental economist at the University of Alberta, on the new legislation.
And what it basically says is, in broad terms, any claim that you make with respect to the impact on the environment of your product, that's subject to, you having the burden of proof to show under tribunals, say Competition Bureau, et cetera, that claim is true. And when you think about something like an oil and gas product, particularly oil sands, where there is uncertainty about, are we talking about production emissions? Are we talking about consumption emissions? Are we talking about net impacts on global climate? Are we talking about impacts on Canada's emissions?
Now, the bill is a win for Canadian environmental groups. In the last year, they have made at least 4 complaints with the Competition Bureau alleging false environmental claims by fossil fuel companies or banks. And environmentalists say the consortium's ads are misleading, as the Pathways Alliance has not yet made a final investment decision on its proposed $16.5 billion carbon capture and storage network.
Let's go to another story this morning in business news. Car dealerships are dealing with a massive computer outage. What's happening?
So Canadian and U.S. auto dealerships are at a near standstill because of a second cyber incident at data provider CDK Global. So the company says the outage could last for days, and this could eat into sales over the first official weekend of summer. So the company's software is used by about 15,000 auto dealers for things like keeping records of negotiated deals and scheduling and communicating about service. Tim Royce is the president and CEO of the Canadian Automobile Dealers Association, and he says dealers are having to use pen and paper to record transactions.
It is a high impact on our members and their ability to do business, and will consume them for quite some time even after it's resolved, because again, during all of this period where the system is out of commission and they're having to do things in different ways, they're going to then have to go back and reconcile everything into their systems again.
So the first cyber incident happened earlier this week. On Wednesday, the company announced that most of the critical computer systems were back online. But then yesterday morning, the company said it experienced an additional cyber incident and proactively shut down most systems out of an abundance of caution. And it says it's working to get everything up and running as quickly as possible.
And finally, this morning, fast food restaurants in the United States are releasing new ideas for value meals. Are we going to see Canada follow suit, do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure. So we asked an expert about this. And, this comes as McDonald's has revealed a $5 meal combo to try to lure customers back who have been cutting back on it because of inflation and high interest rates. So the meal deal comes at a time when the company is battling the perception that it's become too expensive. So we spoke to Robert Carter, who is a managing partner with Stratton Hunter Group, and he follows the restaurant industry. And he says Canadians are actually more motivated by quality, innovation, and taste.
They question the quality, they question the ingredients. Burger King had that chicken nugget discount deal, and it was successful in the U.S., but it was not as successful in Canada, and the reason being was the price point was just too low. People started to question, how can you sell chicken for this low? There is a certain percentage of the population that are, but as a general statement, we're just not as motivated by that discount and deal.
So, yeah.
Questionable chicken. Not
yeah.
for Canadians.
Apparently, we have some high standards here in Canada. So, we may not be seeing these kinds of deals anytime soon here. But south of the border, fast food rivals are also offering similar deals, including, like you said, at Burger King, Wendy's, and Starbucks even, which usually doesn't discount their products.
I guess there is something to that. Although cheap meat, in any venue for me is like, when there's 2-for-1 chicken at the grocery store, I'm running. But I guess the nuggets are a different thing.
And it is interesting. I do remember that chicken nugget deal coming out of Burger King. I was like, that can't be right. What is in that? That does how sometimes they say chicken product, not actually chicken or whatever. Yes. I don't know. So I also was questioning how could they sell it for that low of a price? There's got to be something going on there.
What's up in the markets today?
So in Europe, stocks are lower as investors monitor a slew of central bank decisions and data releases. Germany, the UK, and France are all down. In Asia, markets are mostly falling. Japan, Shanghai, and Hong Kong are all down. Oil is down 4 cents to $81.25 US per barrel. Gold is up $2.12 to $2,362.21 US per ounce. And the dollar is down 0.05 of a cent to 73 cents US.
Have an awesome weekend. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Marcy. You too.
That's Crystalie Ramlakan with Business News. 6:45 is the time right now, and as we have been sharing, today is Indigenous Peoples Day, National Indigenous Peoples Day, and there's a whole bunch of things going on in Winnipeg, across Manitoba, in our province. You can go online and read about all of them at cbc.ca/Manitoba. One of them is through Wasay Healing Center. They're hosting their 3rd annual event on this day. Grand entry starts at noon, and the closing ceremony is at 5. So they're hosting their powwow at the Forks. It is free to enter, by the way. They're also going to have teachings there, teepee teachings, and there's a lot of stuff for the kids as well if you have the family with you today. Bouncy castles, face painting, and lots of fun activities. And there's also artists that are going to be on stage performing, musical artists as well. So it should be a great day for all of this with a high of 26 and lots of sunshine. One of the artists that we'll take to the stage, we have queued up to play for you this morning. This is J.C. Campbell in Fortune.
Fortune smiled on me last night with a sideways grin, letting me know with good times, hard times sure fit in. With your troubles you will find misery. For your misery, your good times will set you free. let the bad times get you down. The good stuff's good enough, yeah, to turn things around. Don't let the good times get you too high, 'cause the higher you get, the further you are for that fall. The higher you get, the further you are for that fall. Misfortune stopped on by one night. They let me in. Said, watch what you wish for, boy. Maybe a sin. Choices we made yesterday, you wish you never made. Sometimes with time, everything works out okay. Don't let the bad times get you down. The good stuff's good enough, yeah, to turn things around. Don't let the good times get you too high, 'cause the higher you get, the further you are for that fall. The higher you get, the further you are for that fall. Don't let the bad times get you down. The good stuff's good enough, yeah, to turn things around. Don't let the good times get you too high, 'cause the higher you get, the further you are for the fall.
JC Campbell going to be performing today. This tune's called Fortune. JC's part of the celebrations with Wasay Healing Center's 3rd annual Indigenous Peoples Day at the Forks, including grand entry, a powwow, events for the kids, all kinds of things. And that's not the only site of events for National Indigenous Peoples Day in Manitoba, of course, so check out cbc.ca/Manitoba for more of where you can head out and about today to celebrate. In the next hour of the show, we're going to ask the Premier of Manitoba how he is marking today. That's just one of the questions in our monthly interview. We also are going to hear more about some announcements made yesterday around details that have now been released around the search of the Prairie Green landfill. And we'll also put to the Premier in the next hour some concerns the Mayor had on our program yesterday around funding and grants and looking for some more financial support from the province. So stay tuned. Premier Wab Kinew is here live in the next hour on CBC. This is Information Radio, and next on the show, the Olympics are known for their traditionalism and amateur values, but at next month's Games in Paris, things are going to have a different feel, an artificial feel. Scott Regehr of CBC Sports is here now to talk about AI, artificial intelligence, and how it's going to be used for the first time at the Olympic Games. Good morning.
Hey there, Marcy.
So give us an idea of the scope of AI in Paris.
Well, it's going to be used in a range of areas, Marcy, from making sure that the games are more secure through cutting-edge video surveillance to making sure they're more interactive games for those tuning in on television and online. But the area AI might have the greatest impact on, Marcy, is the athletes themselves. AI is being relied upon to identify future Olympians in parts of the world that haven't traditionally produced many of them. And it's also being used to help current Olympians perform to the best of their abilities. So that could be through providing greater access to artificially generated mental health resources or to the latest, greatest training techniques available through AI. International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach says he wants this technology to improve inclusiveness and accessibility while also enhancing athletic performance. So one way or another, Marcy, these will not be your mom and dad's Olympic Games.
Give us an idea of what you're talking about, how AI is going to be used to help athletes.
Well, for one, it's going to revolutionize individualized training programs, especially one-on-one sports. So I'll give you an example of that. The IOC, using data provided by the Alibaba Cloud, has created table tennis technology which replicates the style of two-time gold medal winner Xin Shu. Not a bad training partner. And now everyone has access to him virtually. Now, if you lose to Xin Shu's robot a few too many times, Marcy, you might stand to benefit from a sports psychologist, and AI can help you with that as well. Using ChatGPT, athletes now have affordable access to sports psychology. And there's another area where artificial intelligence will look to level the playing field, Marcy. That is in sports that are judged. Events like boxing, diving, and gymnastics have been notorious over the years for biased judging, and that's why legendary gymnast Nadia Comaneci, for example, sees a place for AI in her sport.
How many twists you do in the air, if the landing was right in a right angle, and how many deductions. Every sport, every federation, together with AI, they need to build something together to help and speed up the judging, but also be sure that doesn't overstep too fast. I think AI will help, definitely. I don't think we'll be able to eliminate the human judging.
AI for now wouldn't eliminate, but it would rather augment human judging, Marcy, kind of like what we see in soccer's English Premier League, where they have that the video assistant referees to help navigate controversial calls, albeit not very quickly at points.
Now, you mentioned, Scott, that this is not just athletes who've already established themselves that could benefit, those that are established Olympians. Who else is going to benefit from AI?
Well, a big part of AI's future, Marcy, revolves around identifying future Olympians. And to that end, last year, the IOC went to Senegal carrying equipment to physically and cognitively assess up-and-coming athletes. So the IOC delegates visited 6 villages, tested about 1,000 kids, 40 of whom were deemed to have superb ability, perhaps enough ability to be in the Olympics one day. So this is the same principle as the RBC Training Ground program here in Canada, which has identified and helped turn the likes of cyclist Kelsey Mitchell and sprinter Jerome Blake into Olympic medal winners. So with this state-of-the-art AI equipment, the International Olympic Committee now believes it can uncover athletic diamonds in the rough all around the world. All of that said, history shows us, Marcy, there are potential pitfalls with this approach. Promising athletes from totalitarian states, as we saw with those from the Soviet bloc into the 1980s, could be pressured to dedicate their lives for the sake of national sporting glory. Perhaps trying to get ahead of that issue, IOC head Thomas Bach says, quote unquote, when an athlete likes another sport better than the one AI says they're the best at, the human decision must prevail. Well, we'll see.
Where do you see AI going after the Paris Games? We're talking about Olympics this year, but will AI, do you think, be a net benefit or a detriment to Olympics in the future?
Hard to say, Marcy. There's no question that AI-produced training and mental support aids for athletes are going to be beneficial, but likely more for those who don't have the financial resources to access their human equivalents. Meantime, it's all well and good that AI can more accurately assess a gymnastics or a figure skating routine in terms of the angles and landing positions and such. But are the artistic elements that only human judges can really assess at risk of being watered down, maybe to the point of extinction one day? And what about those athletes being identified as future Olympians? If AI says you should be a wrestler, and the powers that be know that, is your real dream, maybe of being a badminton player, going to be jeopardized because of talent evaluators' over-reliance on technology? So, as there are in many other walks of life these days, Marcy, big questions to ask about AI's involvement in the Olympics. Thomas Bach maintains at the heart of everything, you're always going to need an actual human to run in a race like the 100-meter dash. And Bach argues further, it'll be AI that ensures that same sprinter is up against the levelest of playing fields.
I'm sure the World Anti-Doping Organization will join the efforts of this Olympic AI agenda because also for them, when it comes to detection of doping when it comes to samples and analysis. AI is offering huge opportunities.
So just another factor to consider, Marcy, AI helping better police drug cheats going forward. Buckle up, one way or another, artificial intelligence is here to stay at the Olympics, and the speed with which things are moving means, Marcy, never mind your mom and dad's Olympics, these will not even be the summer games your sons and daughters have come to know.
All right, Scott, we miss you on the regular sports report. It's nice, though, to touch base with you with these special Olympic reports you've been giving us. Appreciate it.
You betcha.
That's Scott Regehr with a special report this morning. He is a host with Radio Sports, and this morning we reached him out of Toronto. It is 3 minutes now to 7 o'clock, and Heather Wells joins us with news updates and headlines.
Good morning. Well, this month's grad season has extra meaning for a single mother of 5. Christy Wilson says graduating from high school is nothing short of a miracle. The 35-year-old earned her grade 12 mature student diploma from Urban Circle Training Center, and her schooling's going to continue. She plans to go into nursing. A mother in northern Manitoba is proud to see Indigenous culture being incorporated into the local high school curriculum. Students earn credit as part of the Cultural Explorational course at R.D. Parker Collegiate in Thompson. We're going to hear more coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
2 minutes to 7 a.m. now, 15 degrees in Winnipeg and some sunshine downtown. It's going to stay with us. Sunny day ahead in Winnipeg, a high of 26 with Humidex. It'll feel like 29. Louise Bridge closed until June 28th. Give us a call if you see anything else that's upsetting your commute. 788-3093 is where you can reach us. Well, in the next hour of the show, as we've been saying, today is National Indigenous Peoples Day, and it is a time of celebration. But after 7 o'clock, we're going to talk to two guests, a mother and daughter, who say they had moments in their lives where they weren't able to be proud to be Indigenous because it was a difficult journey due to racism. So we're going to hear their stories, but also how things have changed for this mother and daughter generationally through the years in Manitoba and their great successes today. So stay tuned. That's right after 7. Also, as I've been mentioning, the Premier is going to be on the program. Wab Canoe will be here for our regular monthly interview. So today we're going to ask him about the city's call for some additional funding. As well, we're going to ask him about more details that were released around the search of the Prairie Green landfill yesterday, and also a party's historic win in Tuxedo this week. So a political discussion with Premier Wab Canoe in the next hour of the program. Plus, I want to mention something that Corey was out working on, and it's coming up after 8 o'clock on the show. The X is on right now. Maybe you're heading out today. Nice hot day to head out to the X. But how do carnival workers feel about the term carny and more? Corey dug into it.
Today on The Current.
People were living in conditions that are almost inexplicable.
Hundreds of thousands of refugees have fled the war in Sudan to neighboring Chad. The Current's producer Liz Hoth spent time in the crowded camps where there is little access to food, water, or healthcare, and brings us her documentary from Chad on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Labrador is getting help fighting a fire threatening the town of Churchill Falls. More water bombers have arrived, and neighboring communities are stepping up to help those evacuated. CBC's Peter Cowan is covering this story, and he's in Happy Valley Goose Bay, where the evacuees have fled. Peter, what's the latest on the fires?
There's some good news. The first thing is that the fire near the town of Churchill Falls hasn't grown in size. And so the fire crews that I was talking to this morning are quite pleased that the work they did with 4 water bombers trying to contain it has been successful, at least so far. And the key thing they've been able to do is keep the fire from jumping to the other side of the Churchill River, because that river is acting as a natural barrier between the fire and the town. The other good news is they're getting some help. There are 2 Quebec water bombers that are sitting here at the tarmac in Happy Valley Goose Bay at the airport, and there's another 2 on the way later today from Ontario. So they're going to have some extra help fighting the fire today.
So, Peter, you're in Happy Valley Goose Bay. How is the community responding there to the arrival of the evacuees?
People here in Happy Valley Goose Bay have really stepped up to help the 500 or so people that have come from Churchill Falls. And last night, they actually shut down the emergency center that they set up at the local YMCA. They didn't need to house anyone on the floor of the gym like they did the night before. And that's really because people here in the community have come out and just volunteered and said, I've got an extra cabin or a spare room, or, there's a bed that I'm not using. I met up with Ashley Billard, who's from Churchill Falls. He came with his family and his dog, and when he found out it's going to be difficult to find a spot for the dog, a random woman walked up and said, hey, I can take you, your family, and your dog, which he says has made this whole experience a whole lot better.
I mean, it's just somebody who, without being asked, going to a center where people are going to gather and just say, hey, you know what? I've got something to offer, and you're welcome to it. And that really is important.
So people are sitting around today. They're waiting for some of that good news, hoping that these extra resources will make a difference on the fire, because the thing they really want to do is just be able to get home.
The CBC's Peter Cowan in Happy Valley Goose Bay. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, thick black smoke blankets the sky in Richmond, BC, as a fire burns an old railway bridge along the Fraser River. Emergency crews have been battling the flames since they were called in around 8 p.m. local time. They say the fire will burn for some time. It's not known yet what caused it. Metro Vancouver has issued an air quality bulletin asking anyone with symptoms related to smoke, like shortness of breath, dizziness, and chest discomfort, to seek medical help. The U.S. Supreme Court is in the final weeks of its yearly term, and it still has almost 20 cases to decide, including some that could impact November's presidential election and some that affect Americans' way of life. Journalist Nick Harper has been following all of this from Washington. Nick, what cases remain before the Supreme Court?
Well, John, the biggest ones by far revolve around the former President Donald Trump. The first one is whether he's immune from prosecution for his actions surrounding the January 6th attack on the US Capitol back in 2021. The justice's opinion will have a bearing on his upcoming trial here in Washington, D.C. on charges of trying to overturn the 2020 election result. If the court sides with Trump, it effectively kills that case, but it would also rewrite the extent of presidential powers. It's being seen as the biggest test since the Supreme Court ordered President Richard Nixon back in 1974 to hand over tape recordings about the Watergate break-in. And the other case surrounds prosecuting January the 6th rioters. Some conservative justices already showing their skepticism about a federal law that's being used to prosecute about 300 people, making it a crime for obstructing an official proceeding. They would have their trials cancelled or their convictions overturned. If the justices side with them, it would also have an impact on that DC Trump trial.
Arguably, those issues relate to the last election, but heading into the election this time around, also a number of really contentious issues.
You're right, John. One of them surrounds abortion, narrowly about whether the state of Idaho can ban emergency abortions for patients who need them. That would overrule federal law. It would also set a precedent that would impact all states, potentially therefore giving Republican-led states more power to restrict abortion access. And another big case revolving around guns. It could overturn a 30-year law that prevents people with domestic violence restraining orders or convictions from owning firearms. So plenty still to be decided.
Journalist Nick Harper in Washington. Thanks, Nick.
You're welcome.
In Seoul.
Mr. Ambassador, what's your thoughts on arms supply to Ukraine?
Russia's ambassador to South Korea is greeted by a group of waiting reporters as he makes his way into the country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. South Korea summoned him to protest the Russians' new defense pact with South Korea. It was signed this week as Russian President Vladimir Putin visited the reclusive country. It comes as border tensions between the North and the South continue to rise. Turning to the war between Israel and Hamas. Gaza's Hamas-run health authority says an overnight strike in Khan Yunis has killed at least 3 people as Israel continues its bombardment of the territory to root out militants. Aid organizations say the ongoing fighting is keeping supplies from getting to Palestinians, all this heightening the sense of desperation across Gaza. CBC News senior international correspondent Margaret Evans is in the region and has this look.
is dehydrated.
A doctor orders fluids for a patient at Al Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis.
You can repeat it as much as possible.
Rising cases of dehydration and malnutrition are complicating the work of doctors already struggling to cope with the needs of a population battered by 8 months of war in Gaza and little aid getting in.
There is shortage of fluid, there is shortage of drugs.
Dr. Ahmed Al-Farah says the situation has worsened in the wake of Israel's push against Hamas into the southern city of Rafah and a border crossing with Egypt.
For 40 days. All the special formulas of milk stopped. All the fresh foods nearly stopped.
We have more than 31 children who, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, have died from malnutrition and dehydration.
That's in recent months, according to UNICEF's Jonathan Cricks, who says nearly 1 million people, newly displaced, face miserable conditions. Israel insists it has increased access for aid delivery in Gaza and blames UN agencies for not doing their job in distributing it. Aid agencies say ongoing fighting and the wide-scale destruction of roads and infrastructure make a ceasefire the only viable option for getting aid to all those who need it. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Today is National Indigenous Peoples Day, but Indigenous history is being celebrated all month. To mark it, CBC Indigenous is highlighting First Nations, Inuit, and Métis trailblazers in law, medicine, science, sports, and beyond. In Ganawage, south of Montreal, its health centre has achieved many firsts. CBC Indigenous reporter Gunacio Deer explains.
How old were you in that photo?
Probably my 20s.
Retired nurse Wendy Skye Delarone spent the majority of her career working at the Cattery Memorial Hospital.
To think of all the work that people put in, the former directors, the people in the community giving money for the bingo and all these things so that our patients wouldn't go like to a nursing home somewhere, how many miles away.
The hospital was founded by Jesuits in 1905, but by 1955, the community took over. It was the first Indigenous-run hospital in Canada, but it wasn't easy.
You'd hear the stories about how people used to do their jobs and then go to the hospital to volunteer to make sure it kept running, to make sure it was moving forward.
That's Executive Director Valerie Daibo. She said the community spent decades advocating for a new hospital because of the building's old age. In 1984, they were finally given a promise.
Where's the tobacco?
Quebec would pay for the construction, and Kahnawake would keep its independence. It was the first agreement of its kind. Donald Horne helped negotiate the deal.
That principle of community control was paramount.
Today, the hospital continues to grow to meet the needs of the community. But for Skye Delarone, the hospital's history needs to be remembered.
It's better that we're running it, you feel more confident. This is ours, like nobody's going to take it away.
For CBC Indigenous, I'm Gunacio Deer in Kahnawake.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. Lots of sunshine. It's going to be a hot day, even a little sticky in Winnipeg today. Thanks for joining us on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. Lots of ways to find us. Glad you're with us this morning. Your forecast in a moment, and this hour on the show, the Premier will be here. Wab Kinew, the Premier of Manitoba, here for our regular monthly interview. Now, we have a lot to cover today. We are going to ask him more about some of the details released yesterday, the technical briefing detail that happened around the search of the Prairie Green landfill. Also, we are going to hear his response to some things the mayor had to say yesterday around the mayor has hopes that there'll be more funding coming from the province to help with things like grants for inner city programs. And so we're going to ask Premier Kinew about that and more. Also, today is National Indigenous Peoples Day, and this half hour on the program, we are going to talk to a mother and daughter about their experiences of pride over the years. And also generationally, how pride in their identities has grown and changed. So stay tuned for that. Right now, though, let's go to Heather Wells for news headlines. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's chief medical examiner has told an inquest the death of a 54-year-old man in RCMP custody in the Paw could have been prevented. Dr. John Eunice says he can't ignore what he saw in security video showing John Edewikapo's final moments in 2019. He says if someone had removed the other inmate's leg that was on Edewikapo's neck, things for him may have ended differently. Today, as you mentioned, Marcy, is National Indigenous Peoples Day, an annual day to celebrate history, heritage, diversity, and resilience of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. There are events planned right across the province, as well as here in Winnipeg at the Forks. We'll tell you all about it in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Abby, how's the forecast?
16 degrees in Winnipeg. It's a sunny start for us in the city. It's going to be a beautiful day. There's going to be a transition to a mix of sun and clouds later. Our highs for today will be touching 26, warming up slightly above our normal of 24. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies and a low of 14. Thompson Churchill hovering around 12 degrees at the moment. Brandon, Gimli, Dauphin, Steinberg, Morris all around 14 degrees. Starting sunny, and we'll see a transition to a mix of sun and clouds. Our highs around 26, but with the humidity, it's going to be feeling like 29 today. Once again, Winnipeg, we are sitting at 16 degrees. Clear sunny sky out there. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds later. Our highs for today will be touching 26, and tonight partly cloudy. And for tomorrow, we'll just see that mix of sun and clouds and a potential afternoon showers or thunderstorm.
All right. Thank you, Abby.
You're welcome.
Well, let's get into the traffic situation this morning. Whether you're walking, rolling, or driving, you're going to need your shades for sure because it's really bright and sunny out there across most of Manitoba, at least most of southern Manitoba here. So give us a call if you see any problems, 788-3093. And you should note one of the big ones is that the Louise Bridge is going to be closed until June 28th. But same traffic line whether you're in Winnipeg or out on the highway. So call us if you need to. It's 788-3093. You're listening to CBC 89.3 FM. So we keep mentioning National Indigenous Peoples Day, but I want to mention some of the things that are actually happening on this day. So there's events going on at the Forks. There's also some live events in Winnipeg's North End. Circles for Reconciliation is putting on a barbecue at Sergeant Tommy Prince Place. That's 11 to 2:45. They're going to have 25 artisans and vendors out there this afternoon. There's performances from Inuit throat singers. There's sharing circles. And there's also area schools, 6 of them that are going to participate in activities to assemble a teepee. So that's going on out this morning in the North End. Also, the MMF is going to be hosting events all across the province, so you can check them out in the Paw, Dauphin, Brandon, and Selkirk. Selkirk's typically the biggest event that they have, and they've had that annually for the last 17 years. So celebrations in Selkirk Park for National Indigenous Peoples Day will include a pancake breakfast. That starts at 9 o'clock this morning. Then there's a barbecue a little bit later. There's Red River Métis Entertainment, and there's also a market going to be there as well. So whether you want to eat or dance or see some music or buy some things that support Indigenous artists or businesses, all kinds of different things going on all over Manitoba today. Well, next on the show, our colleagues at CBC Indigenous have been working hard to mark National Indigenous History Month with some incredible stories this month, and they're all about Indigenous folks achieving incredible feats. Their project is called First, so it celebrates the first from First Nations, Inuit, and Métis trailblazers. Now, we're talking everything from sports to sciences, health, medicine, and beyond. And our first story this half hour is definitely beyond, and it's rooted in Manitoba. Brett Forrester from CBC Indigenous joins us to share what he's learned about Manitoba's first outlaw.
Hello.
So who was this person? What more can you tell us about their life?
So Gilbert Godin was a French-speaking Red River Métis man who went down in history for all the wrong reasons. He killed a man in a drunken bar brawl in 1873, making him the first official outlaw in Manitoba. It also made him into an infamous renegade whose story really fascinated the newspapers of the era. From these accounts, we know he was 6'2", stout, with a stone-faced demeanor and a reputation for great strength. Basically, he wasn't the guy you wanted to face in a bar fight, but that's exactly how this all began. In 1873, Godon's drinking posse arrived at the newly built outpost of Fort Dufferin in the Manitoba border town of Emerson. Soon a brawl broke out at an illegal tavern between two Métis families, the Godons and the Marchands. During the rumble, one of the Marchands hit Gilbert on the head with a shovel. Gilbert later got revenge by hitting his opponent on the head with an axe. Well, the blow proved fatal, and Gilbert fled to North Dakota and began his lifelong run from the law.
Now, I have to ask, because listeners might be wondering, why highlight the life of, as you've described, really an axe murderer during a series like this that honors firsts?
Yeah, I had to ask that question myself. There's a couple of reasons. Godon's story offers a look at the tense atmosphere that was gripping the West following Manitoba's entrance into Confederation through the eyes of an everyman. The Red River Resistance had just ended, but another political uprising, the Northwest Resistance of 1885, was in the near future. The mood was defiant. Canada's Prime Minister, John A. Macdonald, was really determined to show a new sheriff was in town in the West. But Métis leaders like Louis Riel and Gabriel Dumont were also determined to ensure their people's independence. They were primed to resist. So there was some serious political context behind all this. There was animosity, and people like Gilbert didn't necessarily accept Canada's authority. And today, Fort Dufferin, where the murder happened, is a historic site dedicated mainly to the Canadian side of the story. We toured that site with Will Godon, a cabinet minister with the Manitoba Métis Federation and one of Gilbert's descendants. Here's what Will had to say about his notorious great-uncle.
You need to kind of take a step back and say he wasn't just an outlaw. He was a son, he was a father, he was an uncle, and he was Métis in a time when it was there was a lot of things happening to our people here in this area.
Now, once you get past the violence, Will considers Gilbert a tragic figure, someone who struggled with substance abuse, addiction, and that sort of thing. But he also sees him as a loyal figure, a man who never hesitated to defend his friends, family, or in some cases, favorite bartender.
Now, let's go back to that, because you mentioned this was just the start of the story. How does it end?
Right, so this is quite a story. After the murder, Gilbert was captured following another brawl. He got into more than a couple of these. He was sent to Winnipeg, tried, convicted, and sentenced to death, but a friendly bartender intervened on his behalf. His sentence was commuted to 14 years of hard labor on a chain gang, but that didn't last very long. Here's Will again to explain what happened.
He also knew what he was doing. He was got off of the chain somehow. And he was at Fort Garry, and he jumped in the river, swam across the river, and got away. And he was searched for a long time after that.
So he got off the chain. The authorities ended up tracking him down 6 months later at his brother's house in Pembina, which is across the border from Emerson. But Gilbert emerged with a revolver in each hand, armed and ready for a confrontation. His mom and sister-in-law jumped on the lead constable, and Gilbert escaped again. Eventually, he was caught a third time in Pembina and jailed for breaking a man's ribs in yet another brawl. This jail was made of oak logs, and prisoners also had to cut wood all day for work. So here's Will one more time on what you can probably predict happened next.
One day, he was able to smuggle a saw blade into the jail cell with him and his compatriots. And from all indications, they cut a hole in the roof of the jail and snuck out and never to be heard from again.
So in the end, we don't know the ultimate fate of Manitoba's first official outlaw, Gilbert Godon. He disappeared. That ultimate fate left to the imagination.
Well, what's not left to the imagination or even the radio imagination is all these spots that you visited with Will Godon, because you have a video story that accompanies what we're talking about. So people can check out cbc.ca/Indigenous to see that. And there'll be spots that probably many Manitobans have been to. So thank you so much for your time today.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
So that's Brett Forrester with CBC Indigenous. He was sharing with us his story featuring Indigenous firsts in Canada's legal system. So as I mentioned, this is part of a project. You can check out all the stories online. First, it celebrates Indigenous accomplishments from all across North America. And that is found at cbc.ca/Indigenous.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
So how you doing this Friday morning, Manitoba? I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thank you for spending some time with us here. The whole team in this morning. It's a sunny day. It's 16 degrees. It's going to be hot out there. Just thinking about those thick grad robes. Today's going to be one where you want to have a fan for sure if you've got a ceremony outside, although it's just going to be beautiful with the sunshine all day. Our high is 26. Tonight in Winnipeg, partly cloudy, low 14. And tomorrow, we do have a 60% chance of showers late in the afternoon. Tomorrow's going to be warm as well, though a high of 24. Well, sports coming up in a few minutes. We're going to tee up again what's going on with the Oilers tonight. Can they have a win at home against Florida? Right now, though, some music that involves Shane Ghostkeeper. His band has been nominated before for the Polaris Music Prize, but he is nominated for the first time as a solo artist. Here he is with I Know How.
Yes, I'm asking you out, girl, to the country dance, gonna make you twirl. What's that, honey? Well, yes, I know how. You doubt me, girl, as if there was a reputation preceding the situation suggesting that, well, I don't know how. Now I admit that I stepped on a toe or two, but I guarantee you that I now know how. Fate has brought our souls together, and this is what it is to be swept off your feet. That fate, it lives on the dance floor. Yeah, here comes, here comes. Now I come from the line of legendary dancers. Might I redeem myself? Yes, I know how. Now I suggest a strong cup of coffee, cause I come to kick up dust. Can you keep up? Yes, I know how. I admit that I stepped on a toe or two-step and crime. Well, I've done my time now. I guarantee you someday we're gonna marry. If you can keep up, yeah, keep up. Faith, it moves on the dance floor. Here comes, fall in step, fall in love. Yeah, fall in step, fall in love.
Are you line dancing? It's a good Friday morning tune, right? In the sun in Winnipeg, listening to CBC, and on CBC right now, this is Shane Ghostkeeper out of Calgary. Tunes called I Know How. His album Songs for My People is one of 40 on the 2024 Polaris Music Prize long list. See how far he goes, and you can learn more about the other artists on the list by visiting cbc.ca/Manitoba. Still ahead on 89.3 FM this morning. We're going to take you to the Red River X today to hear what life is like for one traveling carnival worker.
And can you identify the pukers before they go in? Usually, like, that person's going to puke.
Not really.
Oh, really?
No,
Okay.
no, it's pretty random.
Okay.
Yeah. But when you see somebody with a corn dog, you know something may happen.
I didn't expect that. That is coming up after 8 o'clock. You can hear there Corey Funk visited the fairgrounds yesterday, so stay tuned. More from the X and a little bit of the behind the scenes with a carnival worker, so stay tuned. Right now, it's time for Morning Sports. Claude Fake joins us for Scott Regehr again this morning. Hi, Claude.
Good morning, Marcy.
So the Bombers badly need a win to get their, and they get their chance again tonight at home in against BC tonight, right?
That's right. The Bombers will look to get into the win column tonight when they host the BC Lions at Princess Auto Stadium. The Bombers hoping to kickstart their offense into high gear after mustering all of 31 points through their first 2 games, including just a dozen in their home opener. Now, one key cog could be running back Brady Oliveira, who has been dealing with a knee injury and missed last week's game. Now, the Winnipeg-born Oak Park High grad will start the game as a backup, but eager to get his chance to step in.
It's frustrating when you go through injuries, but you got to attack it with the right mindset, and I think I have attacked it with the right mindset and coming in every day and just wanting to get better. So I'm ready to go. I'm locked in. I'm dialed. I'm fired up, man. Like I want to get back out there and playing my style, smacking heads, and just doing what I do best.
And kickoff at the stadium is set for just after 7:30 tonight.
Oilers looking to square the Stanley Cup final with the Florida Panthers tonight in Edmonton. That is going to be a crazy crowd.
Very true. The Oilers will look to continue to rewrite Stanley Cup playoff history tonight in the City of Champions. The Oil find themselves a win away from sending this to a 7th and decisive game back in South Florida against the Florida Panthers just a week after looking kind of weak, seemingly on the verge of a Panther sweep. Now, the Oilers are just the 4th team in Stanley Cup playoff history to force a Game 6 after losing the first 3 games of a series. Captain Connor McDavid, who pulled out his cape to put the Oil on his back with 8 points in those 2 wins, is downplaying his superhuman feats.
I don't think you're thinking about that. Those things just happen. They're a byproduct of being prepared, all the work that we've done throughout the regular season, all the work that we've done through this run. Those moments are products of guys who are ready for the big moment, and there's no group that is more ready for the moment than this one here.
And puck drop from Rogers Place is just after 6 Mountain tonight.
Canada, meantime, made its long-awaited Copa America debut last night, and I don't know. I've heard people saying, oh, they didn't bring it. I've heard other people saying they held their own. What do you think?
Well, Tara, it may have been the result that many had predicted. Argentina, the defending World Cup champions and the top-ranked team on the planet, did enough to beat Canada 2-0 in the opening match at the Copa America in Atlanta last night. Now, the Canadian side blanked Messi and company for the first half. In fact, generated a couple of scoring chances themselves. But an early second-half goal by the champs put them ahead to stay. Now, Jonathan David had a glorious header chance in the box in the 66th minute, but couldn't convert. Argentina put the game away with another goal in the 88th minute, thanks to an assist from Messi. Now, Captain Alphonso Davies called the loss disappointing, but head coach Jesse Marsh called it a step forward for his new club.
I thought, had a good performance. We made it very difficult on Argentina and really could have had some goals, could have had the lead. It's been unfair to them in some ways to be put in a situation to expect to have early success with a new manager and a new situation when we have to play these levels of opponents. But we've learned a lot from it, and mostly we've learned that we can play. We can play with these teams.
And Marcy, next up for Canada, a date with Peru. Pretty much a must-win game in Kansas City next Tuesday.
All right, Claude, thanks a lot. Have a great weekend.
All right, Tara, you too. Thank you.
That's Claude Fake in for Scott Regehr. And obviously, Claude knows my name is Marcy, not Tara. He's just misspeaking there. No judgment from me. I'm not I won't cancel him that way, especially considering in the last hour I said on the air it was December instead of June. It is very much June. It's hot out there, lots of nice sunshine, and it's going to be kind of a sweaty day with a high humidity index of 29. That's what it'll feel like in Winnipeg today. The drive, the commute this Friday morning has been pretty good. So give us a call if you need. 788-3093. 788-3093 is where you can reach us. We have our regular monthly interview with Premier Wabka News still ahead in the next half hour of Information Radio.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is a glorious first Friday of summer in Winnipeg. We start the morning with sunshine, a few clouds roll in this afternoon. Beautiful high today of 26, although as Marcy said, it is going to feel a little bit humid with a humidex around 29. Manitoba's chief medical examiner has told an inquest the death of a 54-year-old man in RCMP custody in the Paw could have been prevented. CBC's Kristen Annabel is in the Paw.
Dr. John Eunice testified Thursday at the inquest into John Edaway-Capo's death in 2019. He told court when Edaway-Capo was placed in the RCMP's holding cell, he had a high blood alcohol level and signs of heart disease. But Eunice couldn't ignore what he saw in the security video showing Edaway-Capo's final moments. It showed another inmate's leg fall onto Edaway-Capo's neck and stay there for 40 minutes. He told court if someone had removed that leg, things might have ended differently. Court heard that no one physically checked on Edaway-Capo for 5 hours. When they did check on him, it was too late. The inquest is scheduled to wrap Friday with closing submissions from counsel. Kristen Annabel, CBC News, The Paw.
A new exhibit at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights honors those whose lives have been lost to toxic drugs. Gone Too Soon was created by Winnipeg mothers Arlene Laskolb and Janice Gillum, whose children died from overdose. Gillum is raising her grandson Jackson after her daughter Phoebe passed away in 2020. The exhibit is hundreds of purple poppies placed forming a river, a flowing river representing those who have died. Gillum says her grandson helped make the poppies and says they have very special places in the display.
His is the very first one on the number one board, and his is the very last one with a little green leaf. His is the only one with a little green leaf, and it actually says, "I love you, Mommy, and I miss you, Mommy."
Between 2016 and 2023, close to 43,000 Canadians are known to have died from opioid overdose. Gone Too Soon will be on display at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights until December. Well, today is National Indigenous Peoples Day. Celebrations are being held right across Manitoba and at several places in Winnipeg. One of the biggest will be at the Forks. That's where Wasay Healing Centre hosts a series of events starting at noon, going until 9 o'clock tonight. Wayne Mason Jr. is the centre's executive director.
A day of celebration of our resilience and to take part in all the activities, the powwow, the different colors, the regalia, just getting everybody together and hearing the songs. And in the evening, we'll have some entertainment for those that want to stick around and enjoy the performers that we have.
Mason says the special day instills a lot of pride in young Indigenous people as they acknowledge lingering effects of the residential school system, but also the resilience, he says, of their parents and grandparents who survived. It is grad season in Manitoba. For a 35-year-old single mother of 5, it's time to celebrate. Christy Wilson earned her grade 12 mature student diploma from Urban Circle Training Centre. From Skowhenan First Nation, she's going into the University of Manitoba's pathway into Indigenous nursing education.
Since my father got sick when I was young, I feel like he's one of my biggest reasons why I want to be a nurse. If I can give back to my community, maybe I can just save people.
Wilson says she had a hard time dealing with her father's death and then losing her brother as well. She dropped out of school several times, but decided to go back for her children. Officials in Churchill Falls are telling people to stay out and stay safe. The central Labrador town is still under an evacuation order because of the high threat of an out-of-control wildfire in the area. Teams are working to keep the flames away from the community. More than 700 people evacuated nearly 300 kilometers to the east to Happy Valley Goose Bay. No word yet on when they'll be able to return. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. A mother in northern Manitoba is proud to see Indigenous culture being incorporated into the local high school curriculum. Amanda Greaves is a Bunabonabee Cree Nation member and mother of 6. 3 of her children and family members have created an art piece consisting of moose hide, beading, and ribbons. That piece will earn them credit as part of the cultural exploration course at R.D. Parker Collegiate in Thompson, and Greaves is grateful.
It's a feeling that I can't explain, but I felt a sense of pride
gratitude, just seeing my daughters, put it into, what they know about their culture and what they're allowed to know about their culture. Because when I was growing up, I never knew about, right?
The art project is called Niganan, which translates to home in Cree. It will be on display at R.D. Parker Collegiate. You can find more on these stories and other news as it develops through the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
All right, let's get right into our regional forecast now on this beautiful sunny Friday, Abby.
16 in Winnipeg. Yes, a sunny start with clouds rolling in later. We're expecting a high of 26 today, though with the humidity, it's going to be feeling like 29. It will be coming with light breeze through the day, and tonight we're going to see partly cloudy skies. Our low would drop to 14 by the night period. West to Brandon, currently 14 degrees and mostly cloudy also, starting sunny. It's going to turn to a mix of sun and clouds later, and for the highs reaching 24, it will be feeling like 27 also, warm out, hot out there. Thompson is at 10 degrees at the moment, sunny skies you're enjoying. You get to a high of 25 later, and then there's a chance of showers in the forecast. For the North in Churchill, 12 degrees and mostly cloudy. It's going to be mainly cloudy today with showers likely and possible thunderstorm later. Highs around 17 with some light breeze. Dauphin is currently sitting at 11 degrees to start, becoming a mix of sun and clouds later. Highs around 25. And for Gimli, Steinbach, and Morris, all starting sunny, becoming a mix of sun and clouds later. We're going to see the highs hover around 26, and it's going to feel like 29. Forecast for Winnipeg, sunny start, a mix of sun and clouds, and we're going to get to a high of 26.
Thank you, Abby.
You're welcome.
Corey Funk has popped back in the studio to cover the commute.
Yes, very quiet commute overall this morning, but if you do see something going on, if you're walking, biking, driving, give me a call. Let me know what you're seeing out there. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right, thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Well, today is National Indigenous Peoples Day, and it is a time to celebrate and recognize Indigenous culture, heritage, and history. My next guest says it took some time for her to be proud of her First Nations roots due to a lot of factors, but man, today she's got a lot of reasons to celebrate, and she is mentoring and inspiring others. Michelle Cameron is in studio, CEO of Dreamcatcher Promotions and a member of Peguis First Nation. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Thank you for having me.
Your business success has been incredible. Like, it really has been. So for people that don't know your business, I mean, you have one of the largest Indigenous-owned promotional companies in Canada. You started in 2011. Tell me a little bit about starting and where you're at now.
Well, we started from a home-based business from home in our community that we lived. So I bought a used embroidery machine and I watched YouTube videos for about 2 or 3 months. And I thought, wow, this could be a really cool business idea. So I took this machine, had a little room in my house, and I would embroider things and practice for about a couple months before I realized I thought I had a business. So I created what it is now, a staff of 66 from just me in my home. And I did it part-time at first, and then I eventually evolved to what it is today. But it was lots of hard work and a great team that supports me.
I've been out to your space it's in Headingley. It's like a warehouse space. Can you describe to people sort of the types of things that you sell through your company?
Sure. So anything with a company or corporate logo on it, we print jackets, T-shirts, promotional products, anything pen, logo, backpack, pretty much anything with a company or corporate logo on it.
You're a risk taker, too, because you opened a second business during the pandemic. Tell us about that. It's in Fuller Park.
Yeah, people thought I was crazy. I think I gained a lot of media attention just opening up a store during COVID. And but I believed in what we were creating, and I believed in the product that we had. So we opened up Indigenous Nations Apparel Company, which is also known as INAC. So we bought the acronym in 2020, 2 years after in Indian Northern Affairs Canada dissolved it in 2018. So now we own the acronym INAC and created an apparel company out of it.
What does that mean to you to own that? I can see when you said that, I could see something.
I'm super proud of that because for so many years, INAC was the governing body of our people, and it was perceived as something negative to us. So I'm a very positive person, and I believe in taking things back. So I wanted to own it, take it back, and create something positive out of it. And so now we've created a whole apparel line where people can come and purchase product with Indigenous artwork and showcase our culture every single day.
Speaking of pride and wanting to showcase culture, you put it right on your website. I want to get it right. Quote, you're passionate about Indigenous entrepreneurship and believe there should be an Indigenous business in every trade and industry. That's a quote that you've got right up and out there. Tell me a little bit about that, sort of still what you see as, people who might be not feeling like Indigenous peoples have a place in business success. We were talking a bit off air about it.
I think that's on my website for a reason, because I firmly believe in that. I believe there's so much opportunity for growth for our people. Growing up Indigenous, it wasn't something we were always proud of. And when I was 16 years old, and I always tell people the story because when I was 16 years old, I walked into an RBC bank and I seen a First Nation woman as a bank teller. And I'm like, that was a long time ago. It was 30 years ago. I was like, wow, we can be bank tellers. So I think about that today, and it was a light bulb moment for me. And I think, how can we change that? How can we shoot higher? How can we do more? How can we be more? So I always make sure that I keep that in the forefront of my thoughts all the time. Okay, how can I help? How can I change that mindset? So it took seeing that person to make change in my own mind, like I could be a professional. What that was, I didn't know at the time, but now I know it today. So I always use every opportunity to promote other people, like get into business, get into the trades, get into anything you want to do. I have so many friends in many areas, and I wish I seen that growing up. So now I want to be that change maker to showcase people what's possible when you believe in yourself and you believe in your dream.
And you're doing that. I mean, you're so busy. I don't even know if we have time to name all the groups, but tell me a little bit of sort of what else you're involved in beyond your business through that mentorship and that, to lead the way.
Absolutely. So, I own a few companies, but I believe in giving back to the communities. So I'm the chair of the Indigenous Chamber of Commerce. I'm on the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce. I'm on the Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries Board. I'm on the Business Council Manitoba. I'm the Antine Residence for C Social Enclave Entrepreneurship Program. I'm on the PAC Committee for the Red River College Social Entrepreneurship Indigenous Business.
Business Council Manitoba. Yeah. When you think about those groups, which ones sort of resonate for you where you go, it's really important I'm on this one?
Yeah, the Business Council Manitoba.
Tell me why.
I'm the second First Nation company on the council. So I believe in being able to showcase a successful Indigenous business and advocate for more, and being able to provide insight in reconciliation and what that looks like in business.
We alluded in the introduction, Michelle, to the fact that obviously so many reasons to celebrate huge successes in your life and your work. But also when in the past, thinking about your identity and sort of where you would fit in, and you told that story about when you were 16. How did you firmly find and be able to celebrate your own identity as an Indigenous Manitoban? When do you think that shift happened for you?
That probably didn't happen until I was in my late 20s. I grew up in a community that I was the only Native kid, right? And so growing up, I didn't want to be Indigenous, and it wasn't cool at the time. So I was really ashamed of who I was, and it didn't kick in until I was later in my 20s when I started surrounding myself with my people and our community, and I started attending events, powwows, and different ceremonies, and I really adopted the culture. And I thought, okay, this is for the first time in my life that I felt this is where I belong. And now it's like, I look back and I'm like, why did I feel that way? Like, our people are so proud and we're so resilient and we're so strong. And now I want to be that more than ever, and I wish I could go back and talk to myself when I was younger and change my mindset and, tell myself to be proud of who I am.
What are you thinking about today? What does National Indigenous Peoples Day mean to you?
It's a day that's ours. It's a day we can celebrate who we are as people. It's a day we can celebrate our culture and share that with Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people. We didn't have a day many years ago, and today we do. So it's something to celebrate.
Grateful to have you in studio. Nice to see you. Thank
Nice
you.
seeing you.
That's Michelle Cameron, CEO of Dreamcatcher Promotions, and it is National Indigenous Peoples Day. What makes you proud? 788-3205. You're on CBC. I'm RC Marcusa. This is 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube this morning. Well, sitting in studio across from Michelle is the Premier of Manitoba. Good morning.
Good morning.
Wap Canoe is here for our regular
Thanks for having
monthly
me back.
interview. You know what? It was supposed to be our last question in our interview, but Michelle's here. We're thinking about this. And so why don't I make it our first question, Premier? What for you, when you think about today, National Indigenous Peoples Day, what or whom are you thinking about today when you're celebrating?
Well, I was trying to think about young people. I think just generally in politics, I'm always trying to think about how can we make things better for young people and have more opportunity. So on National Indigenous Peoples Day, I think one of the really amazing opportunities we have in Manitoba right now is to celebrate Indigenous culture and to say that that celebration of Indigenous culture doesn't need to be limited to Indigenous peoples, much like Michelle just said. So for sure, it can be a point of pride for young people who are going through school and thinking about their future careers and having a positive life. But I hope that everybody recognizes that we live in Manitoba, Canada. Manitoba is named by the Ojibwe language. Canada is named by the Huron, Iroquois language. And so some part of your identity, whether you're Indigenous or not, as a Manitoban, as a Canadian, is formed by Indigenous cultures. So positive day for everyone to take pride in.
Let's switch gears here at 7:46 a.m. Wap Canoe live in studio with us on CBC for our monthly interview, which means we're going to cover a number of topics. I want to lean into something that obviously was developing yesterday. You were part, Premier, of a technical briefing on the search of the Prairie Green landfill. So there have been a lot of details now shared about what the search is going to entail. But I'm wondering at the end of this, what does success look like to you? And I use that word gently. It's the wrong word, but can you can you elaborate on what you're thinking there?
And, you're totally right to think about how do we talk about this in a compassionate way? Because we're talking about families who've been put through so much, first of all, that they lost a loved one. And really, to me, I think the first big thing that I want the search to represent for the broader public is on this issue, which has become so scrutinized and reported on, not just by the Canadian media, but even internationally. I want Manitobans to say, when the rest of the country was watching, when the rest of the world was watching, Manitoba sent a message together that this is a place where everyone matters, and when someone goes missing, we go looking. And I think that we're now fulfilling that part of it. And then when we narrow in onto these two families who've been so impacted, the family of Morgan Harris, the family of Mercedes Myron, we are going to try and bring their loved ones home. We're going to try and bring the remains home. That would be the first part of the mission that we're trying to accomplish. We can't guarantee success. We may not be able to deliver on that. So if we're able to show them that we do value them and their loved one, that we do accord them dignity, that we are serious about, trying to do our best to have them have a path forward to grieve in a good way. To me, that will be some measure of a next step that we can all agree on here.
Let's turn to politics, civic politics, actually. I want to play you a clip of Mayor Scott Gillingham. He was here yesterday for his monthly interview. He responded to some concerns from nonprofit groups and community. Many of them work with inner city youth. They say they're worried about a planned city cut to community grant programs. They say it'll be dangerous. But this is part of our exchange that involves the province.
The city of Winnipeg was not really on the front lines of homelessness and housing. We have been drawn into that. We are now doing that. That used to be primarily provincial responsibility. We now give out grants to groups like the 24/7 Safe Spaces, where we never gave out grants before.
People might not be able to square why now you would look at cutting the grants unless this is a political push to the province to say we can't do it financially anymore. You've got to step up and do it.
Well, in part, for sure, we need more assistance from from the province of Manitoba. I'm hoping that some of the conversations that we're having with the province will assist the city of Winnipeg and make sure we're back into the lane that is our jurisdiction.
How do you view this issue, Premier? Has the city been taking on too much financial responsibility for housing and homelessness? Should your government be offering relief to allow the city, as the mayor put it, to get back to its civic jurisdiction as he sees it?
Well, our administration is taking strong action on homelessness and housing. There's $117 million for social housing and affordable housing in the budget. And right now, as we speak, we are working with City Hall, the mayor, Downtown Biz, Osborne Village Biz, Sabe Peace Walkers, DCSP.
Which he said, I should say, yesterday.
Yeah,
That
and
you
just
guys are talking. You are doing that. Yep.
And more than talking, action, like an additional stage of response. I think everyone sees what's happening in downtown, other parts of Winnipeg, other parts of the province, and knows that we need to do more. And I can tell you that in the next couple of weeks, you're going to see that additional stage of response. I think part of what the mayor's frustration is that the previous government did not take these issues seriously on addictions, on homelessness. So perhaps the city was forced to step up and cover the shortcomings of the previous government. But this is a new day. We're taking a new approach. We're taking strong, decisive action on this. And we have that commitment to do better by homelessness and to do better for people living with addictions.
Does it mean money, though? What's your response to the,
yeah.
I'm just the nonprofit groups I mentioned, they might be worried if the city grant cuts happen and they're left without funding, if it, will you commit to step in?
Well, we have to see the details of what's being talked about first, like on the specific level. But on the highest level, what I would say is this. I think Manitobans have generally responded well to the message we've been saying, which is tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime. So we know that we need the Winnipeg Police Service, RCMP, other law enforcement agencies to be visible and to be a part of the conversation around safety. But we also know that in order to get where we want to go on this, we need to address the root causes. Some of that's addictions and mental health issues, but some of that's recreation for kids. Some of that's a meal program in schools. So we're taking action in these areas. And I think in order for us to truly be successful in moving the ball forward on a topic like homelessness or public safety, we need to continue to invest in the work that these agencies do, these non-for-profits that you're talking about.
Because you're raising sort of that bigger issue, I also want to ask you now about crime stats. They came out this week from the Winnipeg Police Service. We know violent crimes up, youth crimes up, property crimes a concern. We're in a moment right now. We're about to have a new police chief named. Yep. As a province, just so people can understand, there are jurisdictional issues, but as a province, you're responsible for the Police Services Act. So in 2020, under the PCs, there was an independent review. There were 70 recommendations. Do you know where we're at with those recommendations, or do you have further plans to review the act? Like other provinces like Ontario are blowing it up. They're saying it might take us 5 years, but we're reimagining all of how policing is done. I wonder what your thinking is around all of this as a premier.
Well, I can tell you we're taking a different approach from the previous government. There's a lot of jurisdictional squabbling and basically just grandstanding at the podium without a lot of action. We're trying to do the opposite. We're trying to do the work, and then we can worry about the press conferences and stuff like that later. So when it comes to the question of law enforcement, I would say we're trying to take a comprehensive approach. So on the one hand, we are adding more resources for law enforcement. On the issue of retail theft, which your listeners and yourself were engaged in over the past few weeks, rightfully so, we've added those additional resources for more units to go to the hot spots as determined by the data that the police have, including the information that was released this week. At the same time, though, we've heard from the Winnipeg Police Service and other law enforcement agencies themselves that we're not going to arrest our way out of challenges like homelessness, like addictions. And so we know that there needs to be that additional layer of response. And so what we're working on with the support of these organizations like DCSP, Sabe Peace Walkers, is to have an additional layer of response after police and after fire paramedics so that there can be that one-to-one culturally relevant, peer-informed outreach to people who are really struggling. And then, and this is really important at the provincial level, to have that backed up with a healthcare approach, a mental health approach. So we're not just trying to see somebody in crisis and say, hey, move along. We're trying to come up to somebody in crisis and say, hey, can we talk about the supports that you need to address a problematic substance use and addictions issue? Can we work on the mental health issues? Can we talk about housing?
Are all of those groups sitting down right now, like the Winnipeg Police Service, those grassroots groups? Are you at the point where you're gathering them all together to look at how we work together in this province in a different way then? Is that already happening?
We're engaging with all those folks, and I want to give really...
Are they engaging with each other, though?
Yes. And I want to say, who deserves a lot of credit in these conversations are the biz organizations. Downtown Biz, Osborne Village Biz, West Broad Bay biz and so on. I've been really impressed at the amount of thinking and data analysis that these biz groups have been doing to say that, you know what, we want downtown, we want these other neighborhoods to be safer, and not just safe from the perspective of, public safety and issues like that, but we want people to come down and have these areas thrive and have that creative vitality that excites so many Manitobans when they visit.
So I do have to ask you this. Well, I appreciate your comprehensive answer at the bigger, wider view. The 70 recommendations then in the Police Services Act, you said you're not going to follow the lead of the previous government. Do you have plans to further review the act itself?
Well, when I talk about the approach of the previous government, I'm talking more about when you saw fights being picked between the ledge
Well, I
and
appreciate the
City
change
Hall.
there. You've drawn the distinction between your
Right.
governments.
And
But are you
so-
going to review the act? Because you could say yes, no, or I don't know. But
Well, part of that is with the civil service, but what we're doing now is we're taking action. We're saying within the existing rule set, within the existing framework that we have right now, how can we complement the work that law enforcement is doing? And what's been identified for us is, hey, we need detox and mental health services to help with the addictions crisis. And we need another layer of responders on the street, which we have to some degree with these DCSP and SABE type foot patrols. But they need more resources to be able to match the need that's out there in the community.
you alluded to something that's going to be announced soon. Can you give us any inkling about what you're going to announce to that end? That will that will add to that layer you're talking about?
Yeah, it is law enforcement and foot patrols being the very present response in the first instance, and then having an additional layer of detox, well-being, mental health supports
built in
immediately right there, so that there's not an hour and a half wait for the foot patrol person to be able to get that person in crisis into the mental health healthcare setting. We want to be able to connect that right away. So
I will ask you a political question because it was a historic win this week for your party in Tuxedo. And NDP MLA now represents that riding for the first time since it was created since the 1980s. How will you make sure that people in Tuxedo feel heard and represented by the NDP? Those that feel maybe still unsteady, thinking four decades is a long time to be with another party, and now we've gone with the NDP.
Well, I think the way that our candidate won, Carla Compton, an amazing candidate, a nurse, tons of emotional intelligence. I watched her connect with voters. The way that she won the seat was by putting in the hard work and showing the humility to listen and to say, you know what, I am going to bring forward your important concerns or address the questions that you're bringing forward. And I think if Carla continues to do that, and if our team continues to come forward with a balanced approach, it's, moderate on financial issues, but moving forward on topics like the landfill search and community safety across the province, then I'm hopeful that not only in Tuxedo, but right across Manitoba, people are going to continue to say, you know what, this is a good direction that we can all move forward in. We're one Manitoba.
Premier Manitoba Wab Kinew live on CBC. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thanks for having me back.
Premier Manitoba, in our regular monthly interview, he is here each and every month. And I mentioned this when the mayor was on yesterday as well. Both leaders open to your questions and comments and concerns. So call our listener line at 788-3205 if you have some of those, and they could work their way into future conversations. 3 minutes to 8 o'clock. Heather Wells joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning. Manitoba's chief medical examiner has told an inquest the death of a 54-year-old man in RCMP custody in the Pas could have been prevented. Dr. John Eunice says he can't ignore what he saw in security video showing John Edoué-Capo's final moments in 2019. He says if someone had removed the leg of another inmate that fell on Edoué-Capo's neck, things might have ended differently. This month's grad season has extra meaning for a single mother of 5. Christy Wilson says graduating from high school is nothing short of a miracle. She's going to continue going on into nursing. We're going to hear her story in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, it's the last weekend of the Red River X, but the carnival never ends for the people who travel the country operating the rides. We're going to get a behind-the-scenes look at what life is like as a carnival worker. Coming up for you after 8 right here on CBC. Right now it is 16 degrees, partly cloudy. It's going to be sunny though for the day, and it's sunny already downtown. A high today of 26 with Humidex 29, and your commute is going well, which is nice news for a Friday, right? 788-3093 if you need us. Stay right here. World Report's coming up next.
On Cue with Tom Power. Dr. Shirley Chichu is one of the most prominent voices in Indigenous film and theater history, and she has a lot to say about the term residential school survivor. She prefers residential school warrior.
We fight this every day of our lives.
She'll be here to tell you why and the healing you can find in the arts. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Hundreds of thousands of refugees have fled the war in Sudan to neighboring Chad. The Current's producer Liz Hoth spent time in the crowded camps where there is little access to food, water, or health care, and brings us her documentary from Chad on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Well, it's looking like it's going to be a blockbuster campaign summer for federal politicians, and the election isn't supposed to be until sometime next year. MPs have finished House business, and as Kate McKenna explains, this season promises to be a tale of two leaders, one riding high in the polls, the other hoping for a reboot.
Bonjour, enchanté. Pierre Poilievre is on the offensive. Touring Quebec ridings, he's hoping his party will pick up. This week, he unveiled a new RV with a giant image of his family on the side. It looks like a campaign bus, even with no election in sight. After touring a manufacturing plant in Victoriaville, he said his goal is to hear from Quebecers.
Les politiciens et le gouvernement fédéral ignorent.
Saying politicians and the federal government don't care about Quebecers.
Thank you for welcoming to your beautiful riding of Central Nova.
In comparison, the Prime Minister was in Nova Scotia, touting his plan for a national school food policy.
There's always a lot more to do. We know people are facing all sorts of pressures, from housing to health supports, to concerns about what kind of jobs and futures there are for yourselves and your communities.
The Atlantic was once a Liberal stronghold. They swept the region in 2015. Now pollsters say the Liberals are in trouble across the country. David Coletto is the CEO of Abacus Data.
It's not just that they're 20 points behind the Conservatives, it's that only in our polling, less than 30% of Canadians have a positive impression of the Prime Minister, that only 27% think the country's headed in the right direction.
Trudeau will spend the summer trying to convince Canadians otherwise, while Poilievre will work to build on his momentum. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Meanwhile, a new poll suggests Canadians want MPs to do more to tackle foreign interference. The Angus Reid survey shows 2/3 say neither the Prime Minister nor Parliament are taking the issue seriously enough. The poll also says 60% of Canadians want federal leaders to review a recent bombshell intelligence report. More than half say the same of the opposition leader. Pierre Poilievre has so far refused calls to get security clearance that would enable him to review the document. The document was tabled earlier this month. Pressure's increasing on the federal government to slap a big tax on electric vehicles from China. Ontario's Premier, the latest critic, calling for the measure. He says he's worried they will saturate Canada's market, putting thousands of jobs at risk. Janice McGregor is in Ottawa and joins us with an update. Janice, there are signs of some movement?
That's right, John, and it's overdue movement in the eyes of North American car makers. They've sounded the alarm about the spike in Chinese electric vehicle imports. Over the first 4 months of 2024, for example, there have been over 13 times as many Chinese EVs coming into Canada, many of them Teslas from its gigafactory in Shanghai. Might be good for the planet to have fewer gas cars on the street, and governments, of course, have offered consumers incentives to make this switch. But if Chinese brands grow too much, that's a direct threat to manufacturing here, and Canadian taxpayers have shelled out billions to help electrify this industry. In a statement yesterday, Ontario Premier Doug Ford said China's been taking advantage of its lower labour standards and dirty energy to flood Canada's market. He called on the federal government to immediately match or exceed the tariffs that the Biden administration put in place this spring, including at least a 100% tariff on Chinese EVs. Here's how Prime Minister Justin Trudeau responded to that call.
We will continue to be there to protect Canadian workers and Canadian industry, and we will look very carefully at what steps need to be taken to ensure that the Canadian auto industry and indeed Canadian consumers are well supported for years to come.
When CBC News followed up on that, Chrystia Freeland's spokesperson repeated that they're actively considering what they need to do to protect Canadian jobs, as well as Canada's free trade relationships. Because with NAFTA, Canada's sometimes accused of being an open back door into the U.S. market.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
Metro Vancouver is issuing an air quality bulletin asking anyone with symptoms related to smoke like shortness of breath, dizziness, and chest discomfort to seek medical help. This on the heels of a massive fire across the river in Richmond last night. An old railway bridge along the Fraser River burned throughout the night. Emergency crews were called in around 9 p.m. local time. The fire is reported to have spread from an industrial building. It's not yet known what caused it. Officials in Churchill Falls are telling people to stay out and stay safe. The central Labrador town is still under an evacuation order due to a high threat of an out-of-control wildfire in the area. Teams there are working to keep the flames away from the community. More than 700 people evacuated nearly 300 kilometers east to Happy Valley Goose Bay, and there's no word yet on when people can return. Extreme weather is being blamed for dozens of deaths in southern China. Crews brave thigh-deep water to rescue stranded survivors. Days of heavy rains triggered mudslides and widespread flooding across Guangdong province. State media says more than 45 people are dead. Half were killed when part of a highway collapsed. Tens of thousands of people have been forced from their homes. Officials are calling it a once-in-a-century event. More rain is expected this weekend. In his first visit to the region of Kashmir since beginning his third term, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi led the celebrations marking International Yoga Day. Yoga, often seen as one of India's most effective soft power tools, and analysts say Modi may now be capitalizing on it to signal a return to normalcy in the violence-hit region. Ishan Garg reports.
The world is looking at yoga as a powerful agent of global good.
This was Prime Minister Narendra Modi's message of hope in Indian-administered Kashmir. He says yoga brings people together, not just in India, but also abroad. Many are seeing this as Modi capitalizing on yoga to project normalcy in the region, though clashes between the army and militants have continued in the Kashmir Valley. Just a day ago, Modi promised fresh elections in the region.
Assembly election ki taiyari bhi shuru ho.
People of Kashmir will soon decide their future, he said, adding that preparations to hold fresh elections in the region are ongoing. The Modi government scrapped Kashmir's special status in 2019, stripped it of its statehood and partitioned the region 3 ways, effectively giving the federal government control over much of its territory. This isn't the first time Modi has utilized yoga for political ends. In the past few years, several Indian missions have organized large-scale Yoga Day celebrations across the globe, attended by millions. Analysts say they have helped India pitch itself as a cultural powerhouse and a well-intentioned partner. Ishan Garg for CBC News, New Delhi.
There is sky-high concern this morning over the future of satellites. About 9,000 are currently circling the Earth. As Nicole Martellaro explains, scientists expect that number to grow, leaving many worried about what happens when the devices die.
3, 2, 1, ignition, and liftoff.
What goes up must come down. In the case of the thousands of satellites orbiting Earth, like SpaceX's Starlinks, most of them will end their lives in a fiery descent towards Earth, breaking up as they do. And with plans by SpaceX to launch roughly 40,000 Starlinks that only have a lifespan of 5 years, scientists are wondering what that all means for our atmosphere. Daniel Murphy, a chemical scientist with the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, is one of them.
If you have 50,000 satellites, which is a number a lot of people use, and they're up 5 years, that's 10,000 per year re-entering. That's more than one an hour.
In a recent study, he and his team found metals like aluminum, lithium, and more trapped in our stratosphere in concerning amounts. There's the fear that it could even affect the recovery of our ozone hole. While scientists are uncertain as to what the consequences could be, they do believe it's a wake-up call and that more studies need to be conducted. Nicole Martellaro, CBC News, Toronto.
And finally, Canadian acting legend William Shatner is going where very few have gone before, deep into the debate about open-pen salmon farming in British Columbia. He's even put out this video.
Repeat after me.
Off! Open net pen salmon farms! Your salmon farms are up our wild salmon population. It's a state on our nation. Now you have a go.
Get sideways.
Shatner released a satirical, expletive-filled video supporting the Pacific Wild Conservation Group, saying it's time to stop being polite and hence the un-Canadian language. On Wednesday, Federal Fisheries Minister announced a new timeline for the phase-out, extending by 5 years how long open net farms will have to transition out of the business. Well, that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
18 degrees already in downtown Winnipeg under the sun on this Friday morning. It is June 21st. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us on Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. It's a mouthful. Wherever you're joining us this morning, thanks for being here. This half hour on the program. It's the last weekend of the Red River X, but the carnival never ends for people who travel the country operating the rides. We're going to get a behind-the-scenes look at what life is like as a carnival worker as the X is in town. Corey Funk spent some time at the fairground, and he's going to be in with a report this half hour and introduce us to someone. So stay tuned for that. Also, our newsroom is representative of a bit of the mood of today. I've seen ribbon skirts for National Indigenous Peoples Day. I've also seen an Oilers jersey out there for a big hockey game coming up tonight. What are you most looking forward to this weekend in Manitoba? And how are you spending National Indigenous Peoples Day? You can always give us a call, 788-3205. Right now, let's go to our news center and find out about headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, Premier Wab Kinew is looking at an additional team to help deal with people in crisis in downtown Winnipeg. Kinew says as well as foot patrols, he would make sure mental health and addiction supports are also there to help people right away. Remembering Lives Lost to Opioid Poisoning. Gone Too Soon is a new display in the community corridor of the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. It was created by Arlene Lass-Kolb and Janice Gillum. Both lost children to fentanyl poisoning. And Gillum says this isn't just a tribute, but it's also a call to government to ensure drugs are safe. We're going to hear more from her in our next local news at 8:30.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Abby Adeyemi behind the controls and covering weather. What's up?
18 in the city. That's the current forecast. The current temperature in Winnipeg. It started sunny. We're going to see a mix of sun and clouds developing close to the afternoon period. You may encounter some light breeze to come with that. We're expecting a high of 26 today, and it is going to be humid. Tonight, the evening is going to be partly cloudy, and then it's going to cool down to 14. For other regions in the province, Thompson, Churchill sitting at 14. For Brandon, Gimli, Steinbach, Morris, all sitting at 17 degrees. It started sunny. It's going to turn to a mix of sun and clouds later, and we're going to touch the high of 26. Now, for Winnipeg, if you have plans for tomorrow, Saturday is going to bring a mix of sun and clouds, and then by the afternoon period, it's going to get cloudy, and there's a 60% chance of late showers in the afternoon with a risk of thunderstorm, though the breeze would come with that, making it feel breezy from the east, and you see a high of 24. But right now, Winnipeg, we are at 18. It's sunny outside. We're heading to a high of 26.
I keep scaring my dogs right now, you too. Corey Funk's here too. Because there's so many mosquitoes out there after the rains.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so they're big and they land on your leg or whatever. And I'm just like slapping myself. And my older dog gets it, but my younger dog, she's like, What's going on? And yeah, aww. I keep slapping myself.
Yeah, I always wonder what my 2-year-old thinks too when I'm just like there, just kind of going like this. We're going camping this weekend, so he's going to see a lot of that, I'm thinking. Yeah.
You'll have to camp through the raindrops. What about the commute this morning?
So far, the commute's been pretty clear. Overall, pretty dry. But if you do see something going on, if you're walking, biking, driving, I'd love to hear from you. Got a couple more traffic hits to go here. 204-788-3093 is the number to call.
Well, as I've mentioned, it is the last weekend for the Red River X to be in town. The fun stops Sunday, but it carries on for hundreds of people who have to get all 51 rides from here to Calgary for the next stop, which is the Calgary Stampede. Corey stuck around in studio because actually Corey wanted to know what life was like for those traveling carnival workers, and so he actually visited the fairgrounds yesterday and he met someone.
Yeah, I was actually there yesterday morning. And first off, Marcy, I don't know if you've ever been to carnival grounds when no one's there.
No.
But it's actually kind of eerie. It kind of sounds like a little bit like this. Yeah, not what you'd imagine carnival grounds to sound
Is that a
like.
sound effect or is that actually
No,
you
that's
taking
it. That's what it sounded like. There's tarps flapping, gates clanking, wind blowing. I know all I was missing was just like a creepy clown just like running towards you, and you got yourself
right?
like a proper horror movie. And it actually kind of turns out that horror is the kind of thing that Victoria Doucette, it's her bread and butter, because she operates the Haunted Mansion ride. And that's where the two of us kind of met up. She's here from Toronto, and this is her first season touring with the carnival. It's run by a company called North American Midway Entertainment, which has been doing this gig for decades. And I met up with her yesterday at the ride. But first, actually, she took me to her favorite one, which is actually just next door. So this is the Polar Express. It's a classic. I actually understand this is your favorite ride, right? Why is that?
Just the vibes are so much fun. There's so much excitement, including from the operator. The operator is always like talking to everybody. There's music playing. It's going fast. He even says, "Do you want to go faster?" It's just a good time.
Have you ever got to operate it yourself?
No.
No. Is there ever a goal? Is there a certain type of person that is like, you're like a Polar Express kind of operator?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. You have to be very outgoing.
Okay. And are you that person? No. You're more a Haunted Mansion kind of person.
Exactly.
That's your vibes.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny how the ride matches the vibes.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. Actually, have you come to feel like a kinship with your ride? Do you have like a sense of ownership over it?
Yeah.
Really?
Kind of.
Like, do you, is it like a friend almost?
Yeah.
Like a pet?
It's my little baby.
Really?
Yeah.
And why is that? Like, because you just spend so much time with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know its problems. I know when it's, acting out a little. I know how to cherish it, how to comfort it.
Is there some evenings where it's like, the Haunted Mansion's a little finicky tonight, a little grumpy?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, that's funny. You just got to talk nice to it?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you ride them just for fun now too sometimes? Like, if you have like a break, you're like, I'm just gonna go do like a quick run on the Polar Express. Really?
Yeah. That's a nice thing about working here.
Like, that's your break, is just like, I'm just gonna go rock the
I'm
Polar
just gonna go for a little energy run, a little excitement.
Yeah, that's fun. See, I think that a ride after a while riding a ride would feel like work if you work at a carnival, but that's not how it works.
No.
Really?
No, you're at the carnival. Take advantage of it. The drop tower is fun doing after break.
Yeah.
Because you get that rush back into you and you're like, okay, I'm ready to go.
Have you ever puked?
Not on a ride, no.
Really? I won't ask you about the other times.
So this is my ride. This is the Haunted Mansion. Let me show you around.
It's pretty popular too, isn't it?
Very popular.
Okay.
It's one of our most nostalgic rides. That's why it gets so busy.
Okay, and describe this ride for me. It's the Haunted Mansion, but it's not just like you walk through the mansion. You actually kind of go on like a mini little roller coaster here. So how does it work? Tell me what happens once you're actually inside of it. I know we can't ride it because the power is off right now, but describe what people kind of experience on here.
Yeah, so basically it goes cart by cart. It's really, really dark in there, but it goes in kind of an S formation, and every turn that you go through, there is a trick, so kind of a pop-up. It makes noises, sounds.
And this isn't one of those pukey rides either, so you don't have to worry about that.
No, thank God.
But are there rides that you've had to deal with that kind of stuff too?
Yeah.
How common? Like, how often is that?
It's pretty common.
Really?
Yeah, like at least every day.
And so do you have like a cleanup thing ready, or do you have to call someone, or like what happens?
So you take a bucket and you go and you find a hose and you clean up, you put soap and you clean it up.
Okay, and can you identify the pukers before they go in usually? You're like, that person's gonna puke.
Not really.
Oh, really?
No,
okay.
No, it's pretty random.
Okay.
But when you see somebody with a corn dog, you know something may happen.
And I want to go back. What got you into doing this profession in the first place? What made you want to do this job?
So I started when I was about 19, just a random summer job, wanted to make some extra cash. Met a lot of cool people, made a lot of lifelong friends, and started coming back every summer. And then one year I decided, you know what, I want to go on the road with everybody. I don't want it to be a 2-week thing. I want it to be long term.
Okay. And I know, there's a bit of a stereotype of the carny, right? What do you think about the term carny in the first place?
Personally, I don't think anything about it, but I know that there's a lot of people that fit that stereotype to the name that don't like it. They prefer carnival worker. But personally, I don't mind.
Okay, so if someone called you a carny, you'd be like, just probably roll your eyes?
Yeah.
Okay. And are you, as a female carnival worker, are you among a minority, or is it, what did you find?
So the department that I work for right now is called the Majors. So we have Majors in Kittyland. There's not many females that work in the Majors. It's a very male-dominated department. So when I first came here, I thought that there was going to be a lot of pressure for me to, prove my worth, but it wasn't like that.
No.
The guys let me do the things on my own. They let me lift the heavy things if I want to, If it gets too heavy, they'll do it for me. But they make me feel a part of something,
Yeah.
which is nice.
And people might also think, that you literally just sit behind, this little button podium here and just press buttons is your job. But what does actually the work all entail?
No, you have to make sure everybody's being safe, everybody's buckled in, everybody's coming in with tickets, they're exiting properly, nobody's falling, nobody's coming onto the tracks, It's very hustle bustle. It's not just pressing buttons.
So I guess what is it about the carnival vibes that has made you want to actually, build a career and somewhat of a life here in the carnival world?
Yeah. So it's like you're coming here as a kid to the carnival. You have that excitement, you have that energy, you have something to look forward to, but you're just coming to work, So you still have all that energy, all that buildup, but you're getting paid for it.
What's it like seeing the look on some of those kids' faces, experiencing, for example, this Haunted Mansion ride for the first time?
It's nice. It's nice because they come out with a smile on their face. They're like, wow, that was so cool. That wasn't even scary. Even some adults ask me if it's scary. They're like, does this thing go fast?
Is there any particular stories or experiences on this ride that you've had that you just want to tell?
So there was this one kid. She had a Hello Kitty face paint on. So she went in the ride, and when she came out, she was crying, and all of it started smudging off.
So wait, were you kind of sad for her, but also kind of happy at the same time? I did my job well?
Yeah, it worked. It worked. Sorry, kid, but it's over.
That's the hazards of running the haunted ride at the X. That was Corey Funk in conversation with Victoria Doucette. Corey visited the fairgrounds yesterday. The Red River X wraps up on Sunday.
All over Turtle Island, host Rosanna Deerchild welcomes you to Unreserved.
Indigenous peoples are retelling history through an Indigenous lens.
Unreserved, celebrating 10 years, looking back at how far we've come, and looking forward to the journey ahead.
How do we keep the story going?
Unreserved with Rosanna Deerchild. Now at a new time, Sunday afternoon at 2:30 in Newfoundland, 3 Pacific, 4 Mountain, and on demand on CBC Listen.
18 degrees in Winnipeg, sunny sky this morning, and as we continue to celebrate the contribution of Indigenous peoples all across this country, I want to play a little music from two-time Juno Award winner William Prince, who picked up 2024 Juno for Contemporary Roots Album of the Year. This kind of matches our beautiful, lovely summer morning. This tune's called Bloom on CBC.
I get so tripped up in things that ain't. Guess that's how I justify my pain. Surely I could change my tune. Be better for me, thus better for you. The gears that run this carousel have rust, worn out from old passengers and such. Were we tall enough to take this ride? Let's look within and look outside. Now I can see you didn't need my flowers. You bloomed, stayed young while I've grown old. Thick as thieves, that in the end wasn't mattered. There was plenty of silver, just not enough gold. Now the hardest part is the letting go. The hardest part is the letting go. Now you can shine, baby, shine, baby, shine. Rest your lungs for a little while. Most of all, let no one choose what's better for me and better for you, yeah. Now I can see you didn't need my flowers. Your bloom stayed young while I've grown old. Thick as thieves, that in the end what mattered. There was plenty of silver, just not enough gold. Now the hardest part is the letting go. The hardest part is the letting go. And you can't unsee what your mind sees now. And I'm the best at leaving till I can't turn around. And the truth's been coming for a while, I know. Can't make it bloom, gotta let it grow. Can't make it bloom, gotta let it grow. Now I can see you didn't need my flowers. Your bloom stayed young while I've grown old. Thick as thieves, that in the end what mattered. There was plenty of silver, just not enough gold. Now the hardest part is the letting go. The hardest part is the letting go. The hardest part is the letting go.
William Prince. Any time of day is a good day to hear that man's voice. But doesn't it match a beautiful morning? That tune's called Bloom. Beautiful sunshine out there in Winnipeg right now on this National Indigenous Peoples Day. Now, speaking of which, Janet Stewart is in studio to tell us about some special programming coming up on Radio Noon today.
Oh, good morning, everybody.
Hi. Good morning.
Yeah, today we have... where do I start? David Robertson. We're heading into a summer weekend, beautiful summer weekend. Great time. You might want to grab a book, right? Sit on the beach, sit in a hammock, sit in a chair. Wouldn't that be perfect? So David A. Robertson, who's an award-winning author, he's Cree, Swampy Cree. He's going to join us and recommend books by Indigenous authors.
Cool.
And then we also have Nigon Sinclair joining us, who is a professor and an author and a columnist. I'm sure you know his name by now. And we're going to talk about the day in general and where we are on the path, on the road to reconciliation. We would love to hear your stories. As Marcy, you've been asking for, what are you proud of on this day? So join our conversation with Nigon Sinclair today by sending us a message, 204-788-3797.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you, Marcy, for starting the conversation today and for playing William Prince, which just makes me so happy.
I know.
What a lovely way to start my work day. Thank you.
You're welcome. 7, I had nothing to do with it. I'm just kidding. Well, I kind of didn't, actually. We should be thanking, I think, the control room. Was that you, Abby? Yeah, that was Abby.
Love Abby.
Leave a message on this National Indigenous Peoples Day. What makes you proud? 788-3797. That's the listener line for Radio Noon, and you can leave that for the call-in conversation this afternoon, and for their day of special programming, I should say, between noon and 1.
There are stories you just can't stop thinking about. They take you somewhere, they introduce you to someone, they share something new with you. Liftoff. Those are the stories you want to share with your friends, and CBC's award-winning documentary team is bringing them to you every week on Storylines. Storylines, new this season on CBC Radio 1, and always on demand on the CBC Listen app.
Well, not a shabby day to graduate. If today's your ceremony, it's going to be bright and sunny, but those robes might feel a little hot. I have 26 today, and right now it's sunny and 15 in Winnipeg. Just time to say thank you here for all the hardworking people that work on all of our programs in our current affairs unit at CBC Manitoba. This week they were associate producers Corey Funk, Abby Adeyemi, Chloe Friesen, Issa Kickson, Kalkadan Mulugeta, Sierra Sanders, Chidi Akuma, Jim Agapito, May McKillop, and Bruce Layden. Community reporter reporters Shanley Vidal, host Nadia Kidwai, Faith Fundal, and Janet Stewart. Producer in unit, Wendy Parker, and this week Donna Carrero in our unit. YouTube producer Brad Lillies and Dylan Longhurst. Woo, Dylan, who's across the glass this morning and just been joining our team behind the controls early. Also, Nellie Gonzalez is the producer of the Current Affairs Unit shows, and Leif Larson is the overall senior producer of audio here at CBC Manitoba. Thank you, everyone, for your work this week on all of the programs, and most especially thanks to all of the guests who've joined us on all those shows in sharing your stories and your thoughts with Manitoba. Up next, it's time for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. It is beautiful out there. 18 degrees, mostly sunny, just a very slight wind. It's going to be like that all day. Gorgeous first Friday of summer. A high today of 26. Premier Wab Kinew is looking at new ways to address people in crisis in Winnipeg's core. He says police and patrols will be on hand on the streets in some of the parts of Winnipeg, and Kinew wants other supports to be on hand right away as well.
So we're not just trying to see somebody in crisis and say, hey, move along. We're trying to come up to somebody in crisis and say, hey, can we talk about the supports that you need to address a problematic substance use and addictions issue? Can we work on the mental health issues? Can we talk about housing?
Kinew speaking there with CBC's Marcy Marcusa. Now, he says he would like to see another layer of responders on the street who can get help to people to access detox and mental health services. He says it exists to some degree with some of the neighborhood foot patrols, but Kinew says they need more funding. Manitoba's chief medical examiner has told an inquest the death of a 54-year-old man in RCMP custody in the Paw could have been prevented. Dr. John Eunice says when John Edaway Capo was placed in that holding cell in 2019, he had a high blood alcohol level and signs of heart disease. But he says he can't ignore what he saw in the security video showing Edaway Capo's final moments. He says, had someone removed another inmate's leg that had fallen on Edaway Capo's neck, things for him might have ended differently. The inquest is scheduled to wrap up today. Remembering lives lost to opioid poisoning. Gone Too Soon is a new display in the community corridor at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. It was created by Arlene Last-Kolb and Janice Gillum. Both lost children to fentanyl poisoning. Gillum says the display is hundreds of purple poppies in the form of a flowing river.
Purple is our color for overdose awareness. We just thought, what a great flower to pick. The river is just a river of sorrow, a river of loved ones just gone too soon. And it's a never-ending flowing river.
Gillum says it's not only a tribute to those who have died, but also a call to government to ensure drugs are safe. Gone Too Soon will be on display at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights until December. Today is National Indigenous Peoples Day, an annual day to celebrate the history, heritage, diversity, and resilience of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Events marking this special day are being held across the province. At the Forks in Winnipeg, the Wasay Healing Centre is hosting a celebration. The centre's Wayne Mason Jr. says the National Day instills a sense of pride in Indigenous youth.
To come together on Indigenous Day, June 21st, it's a big deal for a lot of our people, especially our young ones, and to recognize the elders for what they've gone through and to still be here strong.
The events at the Forks are scheduled to run from noon until 9 o'clock tonight. This month's grad season has extra meaning for a single mother of 5. Christy Wilson says graduating from high school is nothing short of a miracle. The 35-year-old earned her grade 12 mature student diploma from Urban Circle Training Center. She's from Skowhenan First Nation and says dealing with her father's death and then losing her brother to addiction derailed her education. But she went back to school for her kids.
I did it, that I accomplished something in my life for my children, that I've overcome all the stuff that I feel that and coming back to school is a huge thing for me.
And Wilson isn't stopping. She's been accepted into the University of Manitoba's Pathway to Indigenous Nursing Education program. A mother in northern Manitoba is proud to see Indigenous culture being incorporated into the local high school curriculum. Amanda Greaves is a Bonabonibee Cree Nation member and a mother of 6. 3 of her children and family members have created an art piece consisting of moose hide, beading, and ribbons. That art piece will earn them credit as part of the Cultural Exploration course at R.D. Parker Collegiate in Thompson. Greaves is grateful.
It's a feeling that I can't explain, but I felt a sense of pride, like gratitude, just seeing my daughters, put it into, what they know about their culture and what they're allowed to know about their culture. Because when I was growing up, I never knew about, right?
That art project is going to be on display at R.D. Parker Collegiate. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for the week and the morning. And thanks you, everyone, for listening to the show this morning. And really appreciate you weighing in, tuning in. Corey Funk, last look at the commute. It's been very quiet.
Yes, but I did get a call from Dave, southbound La Jamodiere, just before the Concordia overpass. He actually said there's a bunch of loose gravel must have maybe fallen off a truck or something like that, and it's kind of kicking up into people's windshield. So to avoid a crack or something, maybe slow down. Hopefully you don't kick it up for folks. So look out there if you are on southbound La Jamodiere just before the Concordia overpass.
All right, thanks, Corey, for the week.
Thank you.
Abby.
Across the province, we have seen beautiful weather condition. The north is enjoying mainly sunny skies with highs of 25 for Thompson. Churchill is mostly cloudy at the moment. It's going to get to 17. Down south, Winnipeg side is sunny. The rest of the south side is sunny. Winnipeg is going to turn into a mix of sun and clouds later, reaching a high of 26, while the rest of the province from Brandon all the way down to Morris, 24 and 26.
Special thanks to our live team here, Dylan and Brad and Abby and Corey. Thank you guys for all that you do, morning in, morning out. Get some rest this weekend. Take care, everyone. Thank you for listening. This is CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and we hope you stay tuned to CBC because The Current is coming up next.